I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since there's a huge crowd tonight, can you make sure that your phones are on silent? I don't care if they're on, just silence them just in case. I'd like a motion to accept the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Melissa, second. Karen, all in favor?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
I know you changed the agenda, so what's new on the agenda that we need to know?
So the new piece on the agenda is item
9.
Thank you, 9. So if you all got the agenda in the back, that's the actual brand new one that was actually posted. Do you see it? Is it
Number 9?
Yeah, number
Okay.
9.
No, I just wanted to know where it was.
Yep, number 9.
No problem. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have lots of minutes to go through, so we'll do them one at a time because there are going to be some abstentions. I need an approval of the minutes for the regular board meeting. That was the 9th of January, 2019.
So moved.
Michelle?
Second.
Melissa? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Dick should be the abstention. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for the special board meeting on January 16th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Melissa?
Second.
Michelle? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions, which would be Dick? Thank you. And then the next one, approval of the minutes for the special board meeting on the 23rd of January, 2019. Motion?
So moved.
Who did that?
Second.
I think Greg
Oh,
did.
Greg, thank you. Greg, second by Dick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Moving on. So we're going to go right into presentations. So,
Right.
Dr.
So
Semmel?
the first presentation is about the Great East Music Festival. It's a festival that our middle school kids have gone on for the past few years, actually a number of years. So it's a valuable opportunity for our kids to experience. They actually go to Bristol Central High School, work with other schools, and then they also go to Six Flags to have a little fun for the rest of the day with students. But it is a trip that has been taken a number of times. And so Mr. Hart asked if he needed to be here. I said I didn't think it was necessary because he had some other things going on. But I'd be able to answer some of the questions. But it's worked out well for our kids in the past. They really enjoy it, and I would entertain a motion to support the trip.
Just so everybody knows, this is, we get lucky. We don't have to transport kids too far this year.
That's right. That's right.
There's been areas where we have to go into, Great Barrington, I think it is, or something, so busing costs should be minuscule compared to where we've gone in the past.
Yeah,
So.
that's a good point.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Greg? Oh, Dick, okay. Second?
Second.
Melissa? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you so much.
All right, the next presentation is actually a very cool presentation. It's each month we try to bring some new information to the Board of Education, especially around its goals. And one of the goals is our 18 to 21 transition program. So we've got some of our teachers who are here and one of our fabulous students who's part of the program. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mrs. Trinks to get us started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Board members, and there were a few for other people in the audience. You should have a packet in front of you. I know you have a lot of papers, so I thought I'd point that out to you. You wanted to make sure you knew what you were looking at. You'll see Pat Borda's card on the top, and we'll explain why in a minute. Then there's a transition program update, and then attached to the back of that is actually a copy of the PowerPoint that I will be referring to. So we thought we'd start by letting you know that all of that is there. Okay? All right. I am Barbara Trinks, Director of Pupil Services, and I want to introduce my co-presenters. One is Kim Card, the transition teacher. Pat Borda, our transition coordinator. And over there, so that she could have a seat by her peers, we have our other presenter, which is Kayla Ireland. She's a student in our transition program. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to talk to you about this exciting program, an opportunity for our students. When we talked today, we decided what did we really want you to know, and we were setting this presentation up, and we came up with 5 focus questions. The first one is, why do we have the transition program? The second, what is the goal of the program? What does the program include as a third one? Is our program working for students? And what are the next steps? So that was slide 2 of the presentation. So we're going to go right into answering some of those questions. And so for the first one, I'm going to continue with, why do we have a transition program? And we have it for a couple of reasons. First of all, transition is a required part of an individualized education plan for a student. It's required under the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I said it correctly this time. I don't think I did that once when we practiced. So it is a required component. And what had been happening is, well, actually, let me tell you a little bit about that. By their 16th birthday, students have to have this in place if they have an IEP. And we have an obligation to go past graduation up to age 21 for students who are specifically identified as having a need in this area. So this is not new. This has been part of the law. But in 2012, the district did decide to establish its own program. And it was done for a number of reasons. First of all, it was based on increased student need. And you hear that a lot. We develop things in a small district when students need it. So that's where it got started. And we wanted to meet that need in district rather than out of district. So at that time, they were able to start with 3 students who worked 3 days a week in the school store. And the students remained with Hetty Koenig, who was our Apple teacher at the high school. And they got direct instruction in their core areas there. And then Pat Borders came on as the transition coordinator. I believe at that time there was even a presentation done by one of my predecessors, Rob Prenti, about the establishment of the program. Well, then in 2016, things started changing again. We saw an increased need in both Apple and Apple and transition. And so we felt the need to do some increasing again. And so at that time, Tammy Card was hired as the transition teacher to allow us to split the program into 2 pieces. So Hetty Koenig remained in the Apple program to prepare students for this transition or graduation if they were going to graduate early or on time with their peers. And Tammy Card joined the program. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tammy.
What is the goal of the transition program? The goal of our program is to provide identified students with disabilities ages 18 to 21 with an appropriate transition program within the Plymouth-Terryville community to meet their individual needs. The transition program addresses 3 key areas through individualized instruction, and these areas are post-secondary education, independent living, and employment. The post-secondary education helps students continue to develop their academic and communication skills so they are able to access educational programs that meet their individual needs once they exit the transition program at the age of 21. For our students, post-secondary education includes, but is not limited to, college, certification programs, vocational training programs, online courses, and supported employment. Our students also work on independent living skills. Those skills include things like personal hygiene, dressing and clothing care, health care, cooking, eating and nutrition, home management and safety, financial management, community access, and leisure activities. In the classroom, employment instruction revolves around the ongoing assessment of student needs, skills and interests, learning to complete job applications, writing resumes and cover letters, interviewing skills, and working on the soft skills such as teamwork, problem solving, communication, work ethic, flexibility and adaptability, and leadership skills that are so important in a work environment. For our students, post-secondary employment can take the form of full and part-time jobs, supported employment, group employment, individual day waivers, and day support options. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Porter.
So as the transition coordinator, my job is to collaborate with Tammy and her staff and to look at each student's abilities, preferences, and goals. So I match each student with a job site. For example, if a student is interested in working with animals, we have the opportunity of them going to Mac and Molly Pet Parlor here in town. So once a student is matched with a job, I coordinate with the school staff to ensure the appropriate level of support for the student, coordinate with staff at the job sites, with transportation, and set up the experience for our students. Once the student is working in the community, I monitor the placement by initially going with the student to their job site, providing ongoing monitoring, including going to their job site, making changes as needed, and ensuring a written evaluation happens at least twice a year. So the next two slides that you're about to see will show you our local vocational sites and opportunities that we have at this time. So when the transition program started back in 2012, we focused on developing opportunities here at the high school. And we still maintain 6 opportunities here at Terryville High for our students. In addition, and you can see in front of you too and on the screen, we now have 24 community-based job opportunities for students at 17 different sites. That's the first page. I messed up that one. So when a student works at any of these sites, there is a possibility that the student could be hired by the company following graduation. We also continue to look for additional job opportunities for our students. So if you know of any possible places for our students, please let Tammy or I know, and that's why you have my business card. Thanks. So is our program working for students? So we thought one of our students could tell you better than us. Ms. Kayla Ireland.
I graduated from Terryville High School with my class in 2016 and have been in the transition program since then. I currently attend the transition program 3 days a week. I am a student at Tonks's Community College 2 days a week. As part of the transition program, I have jobs at THS, Plymouth Center School and Fisher Elementary School. At THS, I work as a school-to-career intern, nurse intern, and do miscellaneous projects. As a school-to-career intern, I write emails, make copies, run errands, and help Mr. Perkins keep up with his accounting. As a nurse intern, I help Mrs. Lanning digitize past students' nursing records, particularly immunization records. Miscellaneous projects include making sponsor booklets for the classes of 2017 and 2018, the Sports Award booklet for 2018, and the THS Dress Down financial chart 2 years in a row. In the fall of 2016, the permission slips for the eye exam that the Lions Club administer for pre-K through grade 8 were still on paper. So I sorted and documented what students were allowed to participate with parental permission for Plymouth Center School. I did this in such a timely manner that I was asked to help Eli Terry Junior Middle School with theirs, which I did. I am in my 3rd year as the elementary math fact tutor at Plymouth Center School and my 2nd year at Fisher Elementary School. In the fall of 2016, I started collaborating with Mrs. Holloran, the math coach at Plymouth Center School, and, with her support, built the elementary math tutor program from the ground up. The original objective of the program was to help students struggling with multiplication facts reach their full potential by supplementing the instruction they receive in class. I started seeing students in late October of 2016. Since then, the program has grown to both elementary schools. I work with both Mrs. Holleran and Mrs. Shafrick, who direct any changes. I currently work with 49 students in grades 3rd through 5th on addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division facts. I work with individual students one-on-one, record their weekly and monthly progress, and have students review inaccurate facts based on their performance. I administer weekly practice drills and monthly fluency checks. Based on criteria given to me by Mrs. Holleran and Mrs. Shafrick, I am able to move students on as they master their skills. My job responsibilities also include emailing classroom teachers to coordinate a schedule, keeping documentation of student progress, maintaining confidentiality, and communicating with staff and students. I have pre-programmed a variety of buttons through ProLocal or ToGo, the program I am using now to communicate with you, that allows me to interact with my students much as possible. I also have the ability to keyboard responses and have spontaneous conversations with both students and staff. I need planning time to keep up with the ever-changing needs of the students I tutor. During my time at THS, Mrs. Borda was able to secure me an office in the THS library where I have access to my files, computer, adaptive keyboard, and joystick. I love all the jobs I have. I look forward to Thursday and Friday mornings going out to the elementary schools and providing the support I can to the students with the physical help I need. I also look forward to all my other jobs too, because working with technology is my everything: paper/pen, communication in all forms, and much more. The transition program gives students like me many opportunities to have our first jobs with the support, understanding, and the open-minded team we need to succeed. Unlike most young adults, we can't go get our first jobs babysitting or at fast food restaurants like our peers. The transition program can be also a career starter for its students. It provides opportunities to try out different jobs. In the case with my jobs at PCS and Fisher, the transition program worked with school staff to tailor-make a job that allows me to use my abilities and strengths to the school community's advantage. I was able to participate in designing the math tutor program as well. I have learned how to have professional conversations, compose professional emails, keep confidentiality, experience boss and coworker relationships, be flexible with unseen changes, and be a part of building things from the ground up. I have also learned how to effectively communicate my wants and needs to the people who provide me with the physical support I need to do my jobs efficiently. Thank you for supporting such a great program, and thank you for your time.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that. So what are our next steps for our program? We want to continue to refine our procedures and the use of best practices by piloting new transition and situational assessments, increasing the number of hours per day a student is on a job site, continuing to be part of both the regional and state transition community of practice networks. We will continue to build our community partners and expand the opportunities for our students. Please let us know if you have any ideas or locations that might be interested in taking some of our students on. Some community-based opportunities we're investigating include college visits, learning to access services in the community like the bank, the library, and the post office, explore leisure skill opportunities such as park and recreation services or joining a local gym. And for transportation, can we get a van for use in this program? Can we learn to use Dial-A-Ride or take a city bus? Those are things that we're investigating more into the spring this year. And for the location of our program, we love our connection to THS. But best practices include continuing to increase time in the community for our students in the transition program. One way this is being done in other districts is to locate the program in the community. So looking at options in the future may be a natural extension to consider.
So finally, we just wanted to thank our presenters, so Mrs. Carr, Mrs. Borda, Kayla, and actually Kayla's mom for providing the transportation so she could join us this evening. I want to thank all of you. And I also want to thank the program paraprofessionals and tutors that work with the students every day. I'm afraid to list them because I'm always afraid I'm going to miss somebody, but they all do such a great job. She's laughing because she knows I probably will. And then also Hetty Koenig as the first teacher in the program for setting it up for us. And beyond that, if you have any questions for us, that's our presentation.
Any questions, Terry?
You were talking about transportation. I'm a big regionalization person. I'm sure there's other transition programs in and around us. Is there any way that you could speak to them and look for a grant? You know, that could.
I've spoken to the people in Watertown and a couple other communities that aren't quite as close as Watertown, but I am trying to put together some time to look for grants and see if there's anything that maybe Terryville Sugar Lake can do for us, or some other kind of way that we can get transportation of our own. Right now, the All-Star, the busing company, has been great for us. They've been really helpful and accommodating, but we're a little bit limited in where we can go. So getting our own transportation, of course, would help us branch out a little bit, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I think if you go with the regionalization thing, the more people that you can show to someone who's looking for a grant. You know, right now, let's say you can only accommodate 4 or 5 kids in the community. If you go to other communities now, you got 15 to 20. You know, they look at it that you're trying to expand.
Right.
Okay, and they'll help you out tremendously.
Well,
Some of the corporations that I would look at to do is Microsoft, Google, some of these big companies that they hire people like Kayla. You know, because I'm not saying it's good PR for them, but that's a bright mind over there, I can tell you that, okay? And oh, by the way, Kayla, it's not really thank you, no, it's no thank you, okay? Because you show what kids are about in this community, so thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, I'll just make my comment. So I have been fortunate enough that I had 2 children to go through the program, so I am completely thrilled with the program, and I'm so proud of all of our kids who come out of it, and thank you for coming to our district. Tim, we appreciate it.
Thank you for listening.
Well done. All right, so the next piece on the agenda is the superintendent's update. So we just wanted to remind a couple of people about some quick pieces. First, CABE's Day on the Hill, as we know, is on Wednesday, March 20th. So if you're interested in going on CABE's Day on the Hill, that's when we get to go out and speak to legislators who make themselves available. So if you're interested in going, and I think a few of you already have put your hats into the ring there. You've let Pat know. If you didn't let Pat know and you want to go, let her know because we need to register you. But that is on the 20th of March, 8:30, and that starts in the Bush Hall. Also want to mention that the next brown bag meeting will be held on February 27th, and that's always open for all parents. We try to do it during lunchtime. We figure people could bring their lunches, sit in, be part of the meeting. Our principals are all there. We usually have an agenda that goes out as part of my monthly update, so parents know what's going on there. But it is February 27th from 12 to 1. And then we do have, just a reminder that we have 2 administrative positions that are posted. We've got, both of them are due to close on February 17th. So we have the principal position at Plymouth Center School and the director of special education position. Both folks will be retiring as of the end of this year. So we're still on track to identify those folks through an interview process, and hopefully in April at this board meeting, be able to bring the 2 identified folks to the public. So we're still on track there. And I just want to end by kicking it over to Barbara and Jen just to talk about pre-K for a moment.
Yeah, we talked about the oldest students. Now we're talking about the youngest students in the district. Birth years 2015, 2016, right? I always get this wrong. Yes.
2015 and 2016.
So
Birth
we have
years.
opened up the lottery, and the applications are available on our website for future students and prospective students who were born in those years, 2015 and 2016, to join our 3s and our 4s. I didn't figure out the graduation years because I think that freaked people out last year when I when I brought that out. It is an integrated preschool program that will include students with disabilities and students that are considered their peer playmates. But they all have access to a comprehensive preschool program. And you can contact Mel O'Loughlin in my office. The information is also on our website.
That's it. And that's the end of the update.
Any questions? Sure.
I just have a comment. And I want to do it while everybody's here, because when I do my K report, most of these people won't be here.
Okay.
Okay. As you know, Melissa, I sent you a text concerning a House bill that's going through, well, actually, it was proposed it's going to go to the Education Committee. It's talking about regionalization. All right? There's a House bill going through that they want small school districts to start regionalizing. If you have 2,000 or less students, they want you to regionalize. The only way that you will be able to get out of that is if you send a letter to the state Board of Education and explain why you don't want to regionalize. And I don't think they're going to allow you to send the letter. They'll allow you to send the letter, but they may not let you if this bill goes through. The person that you need to talk to who's on the Education Committee is the state rep from Bristol. Her name is Kara Pavlak D'Amato. She's on the Education Committee. So if anybody that's here would like to send her an email on your thoughts, I would do it. Because you have somebody who's in the area that's on that Education Committee. All right? Also, I got an email from the Senate Minority Leader, Mr. Senator Fasano, who sent out the possibilities of redistricting if they do it. The way they're looking at it right now is by probate court. So we are in the Bristol probate district. So we would probably be in with Bristol, Plainville, and ourselves if there was some type of redistricting that was mandated by the state. So if they look at that possibility, that's the way they're going to do the redistricting with regionalization. So if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, I would find out what Ms. Pavlak D'Amato's email address is, and I would send it to her with your comments.
I will say that there's actually 3 different versions of that right now. So there's 3 different of the same bill out there. And again, it hasn't even gone through committee, but there's 3 different versions right now. And they all vary, but just so you can clarify that.
Yeah. So.
Anything else? Okay, moving on. Our student reps, Ms. Diana.
Okay. So, we just had the Krabby Alice fundraiser, the PTSA, and it was extremely successful. And their next fundraiser is coming up on March 8th. The Harlem Wizards are coming to the middle school, and they're going to be playing against the THS and the ETJ staff. So that's really exciting. So we're hoping a lot of kids from ETJMS will come and maybe some kids from Terryville High School come and enjoy the night with us. This past Monday, on February 11th, the Terryville High School Roo Reps, which is like a group of kids that are kind of interested in local politics and just like the different democratic like ways of our town and basically state and country. We went for a visit to the town hall to meet with Mayor Merchant, and we were able to ask questions and pose different concerns from like our point of view of the town, and it was a great opportunity for high school students to get involved with like the leadership around our community and start like asking the questions and getting involved early on. On February 6th, the National Honor Society took a trip to Plymouth Center to read to the pre-K and kindergartners, and I must say those teachers are angels, and like props to them because those kids are a lot to handle, but they loved having all the older kids read to them and play with them. And we happened to go on the 100th day of school, so we got to celebrate it with them, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
We got all our little 100 glasses. Great time. And finally, upcoming on March 2nd, the Terryville Leos and the Boy Scouts will be joining again for our second annual Pasta Supper located at the Lyceum. And it's running from 4 to 7:30. And tickets are $10 for adults, $9 for seniors, $8 for kids 6 to 12, and then kids 5 and under are free. And tickets will be sold before and at the door, and it's going to be a great night. There's going to be raffles and live music, and I do have tickets right here just in case you want them. But, yeah.
We have our second blood drive coming up on the first Friday of March. That's basically it, but we're recruiting students for the canteen work and also recruiting juniors and seniors mainly for actually donating. One of our students, Jade Ockenfels, she participated and won first place for the local American Legion competition for, it was like a Constitution speech sort of thing. And she won second in district. And then this was one of our first years doing this, and it was incredibly successful and informative, and I think that it's something that should continue. And then we have our spring play, 44 plays for 44 presidents coming up and showing on March 8th, it's a Friday at 6:30, Saturday the 9th at 1 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. And there's another day.
The 10th at 1:30?
The 10th, yeah, the 10th at 1:30. And the plays are usually extremely successful. They're usually very, very good. And yeah, that's all I got.
And I heard this one was especially cool. I heard it's fast-paced,
Yeah.
actually really informative, and it goes through like all the presidents we've ever had, and the kids worked really
My
hard.
sister is on lighting, and she said it's an incredibly fast-paced, incredibly informative and fun.
Good.
That's what I've heard about it.
So we had 7 kids represent THS in the indoor track states last Thursday in New Haven, and all of them did very well. And Chris DeForest placed second in the 3,200 meter, and the 4x8 team placed 7th. Girls basketball has a record of 2-15, and they will be playing their last game tomorrow against Housatonic, and their senior night was held last Tuesday against Northwest. Boys basketball has a record of 5-12, and their senior night will be held against Lewis Mills next Wednesday. And we had the Winter Pep Rally Friday before the Thomaston games, and students competed in minute-to-win-it games, and cheerleaders showed their new dance routine. And the Booster Club will be hosting a fundraiser at McDonald's February 21st from 5 to 8.
Any questions or comments for the ladies? Just so the board knows, we did get a ticket to the play, so every board member did get one for the first night. So, and also for your spring extravaganza.
And let's happen after the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's a while from now.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on to public comment, I do have a statement that I need to let everybody know. So I'm going to be limiting our entire public comment for about 30 to 40 minutes. Each person has 3 minutes. I'm going to be strict about that this time. Ms. Kalesa is going to let you know when your time is up. The reason we are limiting it is because we have a huge agenda, and this board needs to get to our actual budget process, and it's due tomorrow, so we have to finish it tonight. A lot of the people that are going to be talking, I know, we've actually heard everything you said. We've been carefully listening to you. We have some of that on our agenda coming up. So if you can have representation, maybe if you like pull your resources together, that would be great. So when you come up to the podium, please put your name, your address, and that's it, name, address, and then you can start. So public comment.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If we go like 45 minutes.
I'm going to reassess at 40.
Okay.
If we have like one person coming and really hasn't talked yet, I will but we really do need to get to the other parts of this.
Oh, no, I understand it. I just
Yeah.
don't want people to
Yeah,
feel that
I will
we don't have any leeway
Yeah,
with the
but I'm going to
public
be strict with the
comment.
3-minute though.
No, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Is it? Okay. No problem. I'm just writing that when we actually start public comment. Thank you.
Rachel Marlack. Good evening. I am up here speaking tonight, as I have on several other occasions, to staunchly defend the desperate need for another teacher for the current second grade class at Plymouth Center School. Before I get into the more personal reasons why, I would like to remind everyone here tonight of the projected enrollment numbers for next school year per class at Plymouth Center School. The average class sizes range from 16.5 students to 22.5 students, and all have more than one section, with the exception of our children's class, which only has one projected section at 27 students. Above and beyond anything anecdotal that I or anyone else can say here tonight, these numbers show a blatant and obvious discrepancy between the number of students in the current second grade class and every other class at Plymouth Center School. I should also mention that the largest average number of students in a given class at Fisher for the next school year is 18.7 students. So across the district, the numbers are still unfair. Why did this happen? The reason is that a decision based on budgetary convenience, which never should have happened in the first place, has gone horribly wrong. Throughout the year, we as parents have seen the student drop and the negative behaviors increase. I have listened daily to my once studious and school-loving 7-year-old child reiterate how much he despises school. I have seen his ability to regulate his emotions deteriorate rapidly, have seen behaviors in him that I have never seen, and his own self-worth and confidence reduced to near nothing. But more recently, I have had to have discussions that I would never have dreamed I would have with any child, let alone mine, like how to escape a chokehold, or what to do when someone throws something at you or punches you, things he has seen happen repeatedly in his second grade classroom. After the stories of repeated assaults against the students and the teacher, I am stunned that we still have to be here to justify the need for another teacher to break up this class. We have so far been promised a full-time tutor to support the class next year. Please allow me to explain why this is not a viable solution. First of all, this tutor would provide academic supports. While beneficial, this does not address the whole of the issue, as clearly academic supports do not help with the problem of student behavior that occurs as a result of an overcrowded classroom. Secondly, and this is coming from my own experience as an elementary special education teacher, the demographic of students that make up this class includes special education students. Having worked myself directly with special education students of vastly varying abilities, I can tell you with confidence that environment plays a huge part in their ability to be successful, whether academically, socially, or emotionally. I have worked with students who are very easily overstimulated by things that might not affect a typical student. But for students such as these, it might completely interfere with their ability to learn, or even their ability to act in a socially appropriate way, which then interferes with the learning of the entire class as well. I have seen serious aggression happen as a result of an increase in noise level, or because of a minor disruption of daily activities. By not providing these types of learners with their optimal learning environment, the ill effects can and will spread across the entire population of the class. And just as a final note, I would just like to mention that we are in no way, shape, or form condemning Mrs. LaValle for the things that are happening in her classroom that are beyond her control. She has done a wonderful job, and I think that just needs to be publicly noted. Thank you.
Good evening, Ray Zagurski, resident of Terryville. We're coming before you again this evening to ask for you to please consider reasons why all students from the second class of Plymouth School speaking out and asking for help. We are expressing all of our experiences and concerns as some of the behavioral issues in this particular class are putting our children's education, social, and emotional well-being at a huge safety and a huge risk. The children of the second grade class of Plymouth Center are constantly being interrupted due to all kinds of behavioral issues, and this is proving to be a huge obstacle in the learning process. Despite all of this, all these students seem to be doing fairly well as far as test scores are concerned, but it's not working. 27 kids in a class is just way too much. It may work for high schoolers that can behave themselves and control themselves better, but not the 7 and 8 year olds that are currently here. I don't feel that we're taking the necessary strides to stop any of this before these people become statistics. We can and should be learning to correct the learning disabilities and handicaps of all the students in the class, as well as making sure that the other students are being cared for as well. We can work forward to help these kids and feel socially and emotionally accepted. With this being said, the physical assaults that have been happening in this classroom are not acceptable. I can't stand by and accept any of this. There's a few students in this class that have had issues and repeated violent and abusive behavior that cannot go ignored any longer. My own son personally, over the course of his 3 years in the Plymouth school system, has been assaulted on 3 separate occasions, the most recent one being last Friday, where he was actually grabbed by the shirt and then placed into a chokehold. He's been threatened to be killed on the school bus, and prior to this, he's been slapped in the face with a folder, had milk poured over his head, and spit on. This was all done in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade. The behaviors of this are absolutely unacceptable for people under the age of 8. I have a lot of connections to this town, and I mean, I've heard some appalling things of people saying that these conversations and contexts are being blown out of proportion, and in closed sessions, people are saying that this stuff isn't really happening. It's clearly happening, and anybody that wants to deny this, you should be ashamed of yourselves as far as I'm concerned. We're requesting this class size be broken down and separated into smaller groups. Safety depends on this as well as the learning process. I don't feel that this is an unreasonable request. I can't believe that you guys would sit here and ignore all the parents' requests. We're just trying to make a safe environment for all of our children. Thank you.
Good evening. Bernadette Persico up in Fall Mountain. And I've been the past 4 meetings or so where we've discussed the concerns of the 2nd grade at PCS. And I actually have my son here, and he bravely spoke before you guys, reading a quick little speech he had written up, expressing his concerns, just not for himself, but for his peers in his class. And now I'm going to put a little heat on the request that you've constantly heard, don't want to beat a dead horse, that we want something done this year, and we want something definitely done next year in the 3rd grade. But to put a little heat on that, I want to express that no, he stuck his neck out for that group. A peer in that class decided to knock him over and then drag him by his feet throughout the class, like a Swiffer. So he came home upset, embarrassed, didn't want to go back to school, didn't want to do homework, was upset that he actually stuck his neck out and spoke for this person. And I had another evening of explaining he's got to go to school, things happen, listening to him sigh, listening to him hem and haw. And I thought to myself, we are really remiss in our duties to these kids, these residents, if we can't just put this request on paper so that we can get to the town finance and we will take the fight from there. Show that you're going to stand behind us, show that they've been heard, just put it down in the requests and we'll take it to the town and we'll see what can't happen. Because this is a shame. Now his education's getting interrupted, his self-esteem's getting interrupted, he doesn't want to be friends with these people, so he's isolating, and I don't want to teach him to do that. I want him to actually collaborate with them, work with them, grow with them, and he's not looking at all forward to having another year of the same 27 kids shoved in a classroom with one teacher and having to deal with this again. And that's really all I really want to say is just put it down and let us take it. I know that you've said it before, your hands are tied. We'll take it from there. Thank you.
My name is Cassandra Giel. I'm also here to advocate for my daughter and all of her classmates in the single 2nd grade class at Plymouth Center. The class size of 27 is having significant negative social and emotional effects on these kids in the classroom. They're being ignored, distracted, and now even assaulted in class. When their class sizes were more reasonable in previous grades, these problems, the kids that were having more emotional outbursts were able to be contained, able to get the attention that they needed from the teacher. It was having much less of an impact on these kids. So the education and emotional care that should be provided to these kids is spread way too thin. These kids are going to fall through the cracks, and they deserve the same opportunities as all of the other students in the district have. For comparison, I just want to mention that the larger elementary class sizes in Waterbury are no more than 22 kids. Thank you.
Good evening. Kelly Ekatura speaking in regards to my son's second grade class at Plymouth Center School. This is now my 5th time speaking before you, and I must admit I am the most nervous of all. I am nervous because today is the day you all make a very important decision. You choose to either do what is truly best and have 2 teachers for this class, or you can think that all of our concerns that we have shared with you are untrue, and by some miracle things suddenly become completely different and their learning environment is going to improve. When I spoke before you on January 23rd, I explained how I really gave much thought and how I would feel if I was a member of the board. What questions would I ask and how would I vote? So many things have been said from all of us concerned parents, and even some of the students themselves spoke with you about the dynamics of this class. Dr. Simmel and Mrs. Parsons even took an hour of their time to visit the classroom. Unfortunately, you weren't in the class when Mrs. LaValle gets attacked, or when a student throws something across the room, or another gets choked, and I can go on and on. Now I'm kindly asking all of you to please put yourself in my shoes. Please think about if you were me, what would you do? What would you say to your child? What would you say about your child's classroom? What changes would you be asking the board to make? I watched Dr. Semmel's presentation of the 2019-2020 budget to the Board of Education in the January 9th meeting. He was discussing class sizes at Fisher School. He said, and I quote, class sizes would be in the 16 to 18 range. He continued by saying, and again I quote, which is actually very, very suitable for learning. Those are nice class sizes for kids. Then, when he was discussing his plans to move the 5th grade teacher to the 2nd grade for next year at PCS, he says, then it moves to 17 students, which is much more manageable. Then he starts to discuss my son's class of 27. Now, putting yourself in my shoes, you would be very upset because you're no longer hearing talk of 16 to 18 being suitable for learning, or that this is a nice class size. The discussion now shifts to him saying, we need to try to weigh our students' needs against additional costs, that we need to move slow as to not make a rash decision. He is definitely no longer talking about manageability. I just have to believe that many of you can truly understand why we have been here discussing our children's education. When I first spoke to you back in November, you explained to me that it was very important for me to bring more parents and for us to discuss our concerns with the board. I did, and we have voiced many, many concerns. After hearing all of the issues happening in this class and seeing how it is affecting us and our children, how can you not do what is best for our children? Please give my son and all the 2nd graders the tools they need so they can achieve what is clearly stated in the Plymouth Center School mission statement. PCS strives to awaken the natural curiosity and love of learning in all our students while providing a supportive, safe, and nurturing environment. Please vote yes to giving our kids 2 classrooms so you can provide them with an improved and safer learning environment that they can love once again. Thank you so much for your time.
I'll just say one very quick thing. My name is Brandy Armbruster, North Harwinton Ave. At one of the last board workshop meetings I was at, I asked every board member what the benefit was to cutting it to one class of having 27 students, and not one person could give me an answer. The money wasn't even an answer. So if there's admittedly zero benefit to having the one teacher and several listed documented detriments, how is there even any debate anymore? The decision is very clear, it's mathematical, it's logical, and that's it. That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Diane Lassie, 425 North Street, Plymouth, Connecticut. I have a son who's a sophomore at Terryville High School and is currently in band. I'm speaking on behalf of keeping Mr. Keene in his position as a full-time music teacher at Terryville High School. The budget proposal from Dr. Semmel to the Board of Ed is calling for a cut to Mr. Keene's currently held position at Terryville High School for .4, almost half of his hours, and sending him to Eli Terry Jr. Middle School to help out with music electives there. This is not the first time, and I fear it will not be the last time, that the Board of Ed butchers the music program in this town. Board of Ed actually removed a music teacher position from the middle school a few years back. They should be adding a music teacher back to the middle school, not robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. Instead, they are proposing to solve the problem that they created by eliminating some of Mr. Keene's hours at Terryville High School. Our town and the music students of Terryville High School need and deserve a full-time music teacher. A little background. Mr. Keene was asked to take the position at Terryville High School and leave the middle school about 10 years ago, at a time when the music program was in shambles. He came in and took it over. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Keene's perfect, nobody is. But I will say through his past years at Terryville High School, he has been key in turning that music program around. He has got numerous high school band and chorus students over the past 10 years involved in many different events, including drumline, music camps, trip, UMass band days, band and chorus performances for graduation ceremonies, numerous parades in town and throughout the state. It should also be mentioned that many of Terryville High School parade performances have won awards. His program is one that is working in our town for our students, and it should give our town reason to be proud. We should also be aware that since Mr. Keene's music budget has been lean, to say the least, he organizes and helps his students raise funds through 2 different fundraisers by himself to offset trip costs. He's also involved and attends Friends of Music, which is a group of parents of music students. He attends meetings and activities where he is instrumental, pardon the pun, in helping parents want to be involved in every aspect of the music program, whether it's band, chorus, or color guard. I came to the initial Board of Education meeting, and I thought I would only be speaking up for the music program at the high school. I came away from that meeting realizing there are other major issues going on in our small town of Plymouth. I was shocked at what I was hearing. And although others may have a different opinion, I feel all these problems are tied together. I was so surprised to hear so many eloquent second graders. Parents, you should be so proud and hopeful that they will become future politicians and educators and be the ones to help us out. We also heard how we need a dean of students at the other elementary school. While we're dealing with all discipline problems at one second grade on the other side of town, we are interested in supporting a dean of students at the other elementary school. We're told this won't become a line item for our town's taxes. I'm not convinced of that. Title I money, if that disappears, it will be a line item.
Diane, time.
All right, just to finish, there's one common theme. The problem that exists here is frustration, Kids are frustrated in town. They need an outlet. An outlet is the music program. Dr. Semmel himself has sat and played his trumpet with the Terryville High School Band. I think this is great. I can only guess he has enjoyed it, and based on the fact that he's done it several times. I'm betting it was a highlight of his day. We deserve to keep the music program as it is and let our kids, especially the second graders coming up, have a release and have a highlight to their day as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Lundy. I'm basically going to say the same thing I did before, but it's good to reiterate it because it's important. I, too, am in support of Mr. Keene staying full-time at Terryville High School because the band gives the children pride. Pride to want to go to school, pride to do well, pride to perform well. And my daughter, the band is her life. Because of accidents she's been in, she's not able to participate in different sports and other things, but band she can. So that gives her identity. It gives her a reason to have a good attitude towards school and pride and do well. And as Diane was saying earlier, we saw what happened with the middle school, and that happened when my daughter was there. Mr. Hart's hours were split between chorus and band, and it negatively impacted the quality of his teaching ability because his time was minimized. So now the kids coming from elementary school to high school are not prepared, are not at the level that they should be. And to have the excuse, okay, if we send Mr. Keene there, then they'll be ready. But the band at the high school at that point will not exist because kids are not going to want to stay in it because they feel that they aren't important because of the band being cut. And it's just, we aren't going to have the recognition that Terry has of having good bands. I think we've got to recognize for the Mum Festival Parade, and just a lot that we have to be proud of. And I'd hate to see that minimized. And thank you.
My name is Emily Seeds. I'm a sophomore here at Terryville High School and have been involved in the music program since. I feel that I speak for the students of the music program when I say that I heavily oppose making any cuts to the program whatsoever. Music has always been a way to keep my heart beating and has taught me how to be myself without a barrier in the way. Mr. Keene has opened doors for new opportunities. For example, this past year I have joined Color Guard, which without Mr. Keene was something I never would do, and without having him here full-time is something that I may not have the chance to continue with. People see the concerts that we put on and the parades that we march in, but what they do not see is the complete dedication that our teacher tirelessly puts into the program. Just considering the time commitment for Color Guard, Mr. Keene dedicates hours of song selection for all of the music classes. He commits days to practice and rehearse with the marching band, teaching not only the proper way to march, but how to dance while performing a routine or playing an instrument, and has time to talk with students and encourage them to do their best and try new things. I cannot imagine any other director who puts in as much effort into her performances as Mr. Keene. To help us learn our parts better, he even spends his own time pre-recording each and every individual part to ensure that every student is on track. I have also had the opportunity to participate in the Berkshire League Music Festival. While preparing for events like this, it is essential to have a full-time teacher. Knowing that Mr. Keene is there to help throughout the day is a vital factor for being prepared for the rehearsals and concerts. The THS choir and band are both at a high school level, and in order to remain that way, a full-time music teacher is more than necessary. Additionally, research conducted at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute has also found that a daily increase in music can lead to an increase in spatial-temporal reasoning, which is beneficial to skills in math and science, leading to improvements on SAT scores. This increase in scores helps benefits both students and the district. This shows the vitality of our music program and that making any cuts to it would truly be a detrimental loss to the district and every student. Lastly, I would like to end with a quote by Johnny Cash, who once said that life and love will go on, let the music play. Without Mr. Keene here full-time, the music that students love will no longer have the chance to be played. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ariana Lance, and I am a sophomore here at Terryville High School. I am part of the chorus and color guard. I have attended the past 2 Board of Ed meetings, and I spoke at the first one. I am here again to explain the negative effects of cutting the high school music program and to convince you to include a .4 music teacher position in the budget for the middle school. Being in the music program here, I have been pushed to try things I never would have before, and I've gotten many life experiences from it. For example, joining color guard. From joining color guard, I have been able to perform in many parades, such as the Big E and the Mum Parade. Without having Mr. Keene here full-time, the incoming classes would not be able to participate in color guard, because Mr. Keene has to spend a lot of time in school and after school for rehearsals to come up with a routine and perfect it. This is just the time that Mr. Keene has dedicated to color guard. He also has to dedicate time to the band, chorus, and his other music classes, such as piano and music appreciation. From being a part of chorus, I have gotten to participate in the Berkshire League Music Festival. For this festival, Mr. Keene has to dedicate extra time to individual students to work on their parts for each song. Many times he cannot just use class periods to work with these students because there's also other kids in the class he has to teach who are not participating. Therefore, he has to work with students after school or even during their free periods. Without Mr. Keene here all the time, extra rehearsals would not be available for these students. I have gotten many great things from the music program, and there are many other kids who have also had many great experiences, which are only possible because we have Mr. Keene as a full-time teacher. I know Mr. Keene may just seem like another teacher to you, but he is so much more to the kids in the music program. He is a mentor and someone we can always go to, even if it's not music related. By cutting his position to .6, you would be ripping him away from us. If he had to split his time between us and the middle school, we would only get him for our class periods, but not everything can be solved in a 45-minute period. I know you may think there are many other things that seem more important to put in the budget, but if you cut the music program, you will be negatively impacting the students in it now as well as the future classes. Therefore, I'm asking you to please consider to put a .4 music teacher in the budget for the middle school so the kids in the high school can still have Mr. Keene as a full-time teacher. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy Lallier. I live in Terryville, Connecticut. I would just like to say about Mr. Keene. My son was in the middle school when the first fiasco started, when we took away Mr. Michaels from the program, and he didn't want to even stay in band. I convinced him to stay in band once he went to the high school, and it was a whole different program. He enjoyed it, loves band. He's a senior now. During his junior year, he was not able to be in band because of his AP classes. So Mr. Keene made it possible for David to stay in band by being available to him all day during his flex class, study hall, and after school. David was still able to go to the parades, be in the concerts, go on the trips, do the St. Patrick's Day parade, the Memorial Day parade, everything. Mr. Keene is available all day to his kids, and if he was not able to, if you cut his hours at the high school, someone like David would not be able to be in the band. So I'm asking that you keep him at the high school all day and add another music teacher to the middle school for the .4 hours. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Julie Kozakowski for Park Street in Plymouth. Just a couple things. One is I had one student at the middle school when we had 2 music teachers. I've had one student go through the middle school without two music teachers. There's absolutely no comparison. and you're just putting Band-Aids on things that were created here 6 years ago. And a lot of these parents that you see here were here 6 years ago, and no one listened, and they went ahead and they cut that position. I really didn't even want to come back and fight for this position because I feel like no one's going to hear us. And I know it still has to go to the Board of Finance, but if you guys don't approve it here, you're sending a message to the town that the arts are not important. And I said this at one of the planning meetings, and I've witnessed it over the last 6 years. First it was the music teacher, then we lost our industrial arts teacher, then we cut consumer science, and now we wonder why there's not enough spots for those middle school kids for their art electives. Well, you figure it out. You cut 3 positions. And I'm just frustrated. Anyone that knows me personally knows my mom in 1955 was the only female in the Terryville High School marching band. All right, I grew up here. I was in this band. I was in a college band. Music runs deep in my family. I have an 8th grader that signs up for classes tomorrow for THS. And honestly, I'm not convinced I want to convince him to do band if this passes with the reduction, because I know he's not going to have a positive experience. Band here in the 80s was an embarrassment. I didn't want to wear my band jacket. I was embarrassed. But I loved band, and I went on and was part of an amazing college program. I was proud to wear my jacket. People went to the football games to see the band. That's what we have right now. These kids want to be marching. They're getting first place in New Haven. They're getting second place in the Mum Parade. Why you would even want to touch a program that brings some pride to our kids for 0.4? I mean, really, I know that you guys are strapped and there's so much that is state-driven that you don't have options about, but it just seems to me, in the whole scheme of things, this is such a small amount that you guys need to find it and do something positive for our kids.
Tim Keene, 2 Pheasant Run, Burlington. I don't have any prepared comments tonight, but I'm a little overwhelmed with all the support. These kids, they work hard. They're great kids. And I'm here not fighting for me. You know, whatever happens, I'm going to have a job next year. I'm fighting for these students. They deserve a full-time music teacher. They work hard. They take pride in this program. And I know you have a tough job, and I know we're on the same page. We're on the same team. So I trust that you will do the right thing, and thank you for your vote.
Hi. I came here just to listen tonight as a community member, as my son does not attend.
Hold on, honey. Can you just say your name? We didn't.
Oh, sorry, Nicole Kliegel,
Thank you.
32 East Washington Road. I'm a new member of the community, and my son is just now eligible for the pre-K program, which I'm learning more about. But I came just to listen, and I felt the need that I had to say something as a community member, and my son will be going to this district. I feel a little silly being here right now, but I'm here because I saw a notice in the paper about the class of 27. And from what I know about this district, my son will not even go to this school. However, if it can be done at one school, it can be done at any school. And I'm speaking up for all the students in hopes that this changes and this will not happen again. As an educator, which I teach in Cheshire, I know what large classes can do. Last year I saw a 5th grade class of 26, and it was awful. Great teacher, lots of special ed support, but the kids and teachers suffered. Every time they came, there was another issue. The students who were special ed were overwhelmed. There was so much noise in the classroom, and they did get pull-out support, and they got everything they possibly could. And the first thing that they did this year was add another 5th grade teacher. To all the ones they took, they added them back. Even the class size of 21 that I saw with my first graders last year had a difficult time focusing, and I could not imagine 27 second graders in one class. And I know that class sizes greatly depend on enrollment and the budget, but they're not getting what they need. There's no possible way with all of the support you could possibly add. There's too many students. On a side note, I didn't even know, as a music educator, I cannot believe I'm hearing about cuts to the music department in the district my son's going to go to. I didn't know this was even on the agenda for tonight. With all the music in the with all of the links supporting reading and math and social emotional needs that can be met through music, it really makes me wonder when people will truly begin to appreciate the arts. I actually did not enjoy music in my early school career. I got into it in middle school. I enjoyed it. I got into it in high school, and I loved it. And I knew I always wanted to be a teacher, but it wasn't until I had my amazing full-time high school music teacher that is the reason I am a music teacher today. So, thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Gina Shaffrick, and I'm the math coach at Fisher Elementary School. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the proposed Dean of Students position at Fisher Elementary. Okay? As I previously stated, we have a definite need for this position. It's not a want. We have always spoken that we need to ensure that we are meeting the emotional and social needs of our students. As I stated previously as well, the District and Board of Education has recognized this need and has focused one of its own goals on addressing this issue. We are aware that in order for students to learn and grow, students need to be able to understand and manage their emotions as well as establish positive relationships. The Dean of Students would help with meeting this need. The students would have regular daily touch points with a person that they would be able to establish a relationship with. The student or the dean would be available to meet with students when the student is becoming overwhelmed with events that are occurring within their classrooms and in their lives. The dean would be able to have consistent conversations with students in order to make them feel safe and to help them set goals regarding daily achievement. The dean would also be able to help students navigate through the day, especially during those unstructured times of lunch and recess. In addition, this position would allow the building principal to be able to perform the duties that are actually part of her job description. Right now, our current principal is often found following students, addressing inappropriate behaviors that have occurred during the day, and trying to ensure that all students are safe. At FES, we have many students who are living in less than ideal situations who need a consistent person that they can trust and rely on, build a relationship with, and the Dean of Students could be that person. Thank you.
I'm just going to take a moment. We're getting to the time where we're about 40 minutes, so I'm going to ask the board what they would like to do next. Do you want to add more time? How much time?
I personally would go 15 more minutes. I'd go till 8:30.
And what's the consensus, board members? Because this is your meeting. 8:30 is fine. 8:30? Melissa, how about you? How you feeling? Good? So 8:30? Okay. I just wanted everybody to be clear. Okay. Thank you.
We're going.
Yeah, you're going. Go ahead.
Sure. Chris Simokins with 52 Old Farm Road. Of course, I wasn't going to say anything, but I always end up coming here and saying something anyway. I know it's kind of the running joke how I'm the parent who's always at these meetings, and well, it's unfortunate that it seems like some events have happened that's caused a series of other parents and to come and give their testimony along with their children, who sat here at the first budget workshop for like 2+ hours before they even had a chance to talk, and you heard from the horse's mouth, what they're going through. I mean, it was heart-wrenching, to say the least, to listen to what these kids were saying, especially for them to sit here and say that they don't want to go to school. You hear a lot about this SEL, the social emotional learning. So what is it? Social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Okay, well, that sounds like a job the parents should be doing, if you ask me. But now that the schools are starting to pick this up, and with the anti-bullying and zero tolerance, and in this particular case, it doesn't seem to be working. You know, it seems like the resources are being used for a minority of certain students that are causing a problem for the majority, and that never works. And it's not fair to the teachers, and it's certainly not fair to the students. I mean, you expect to hear a high school student complain about not going to school, not a second grader. So, yeah, I guess that's all I had. I mean, something needs to be done there because it's a problem. I mean, to hear those kids say what they had to say, I don't know. I had a problem with it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Corey Mazan. I'm a reading coach at Fisher Elementary School. I'm here tonight on behalf of the proposed Dean of Students position at Fisher Elementary School. At FES, we have been developing SRBI plans for students who struggle with ELA and math for a while now. This year, we've added behavior interventions to our SRBI process, utilizing data to target specific behaviors, set goals, and re-meet to determine if interventions are successful. There has been an increase in the amount of behaviors that inhibit a child from learning across all grade levels over the past few years. A dean of students would be a critical element in this process, ensuring the success of both teachers and students. He or she would facilitate the team meetings in which students are discussed and where plans are created, as well as to be able to ensure fidelity to that plan and provide additional supports needed for the student and the teachers. The dean could also assist in providing coaching to teachers in regards to the implementation of behavior plans, as well as best practices within the classroom. Having the time to be in classrooms would allow him or her to see behaviors in different contexts and provide immediate feedback to teachers that is personalized for each child or classroom. In addition, a dean would be a consistent person available to help students in our Tier 3 behavior supports who could use proactive check-ins to ensure that a child is ready for learning prior to accessing the classroom and help the child transition once ready if needed. Having this collaboration would be invaluable and would allow some of our most at-risk students a better chance at success. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? Going once? Danny, okay. All right. Danny's coming.
Dan Gentile, 269 Malta Road, Plymouth, Connecticut. Just an observation. Going off of Chris because I haven't been speaking. I've been taking a lot in for a while. You guys brought on social emotional learning. But I think Mr. Keene is probably your number one touch point to most kids within the high school. So why would you want to destroy that when you're promoting a program with your top captain moving them out of the high school that has the with all the teachers, they all have that social emotional connection to all the kids. But as far as Mr. Keene, get rid of Cabe. Do something to fund the part-timer there. That's what I did with Mrs. Ayudi. We saved her. We got rid of Cabe for 1 year. But you guys are in charge, Board of Ed. It's the superintendent's request list, and you guys could say, yeah, we don't like this, we don't like that. I was sitting in that position where we had to send it back and say, no, we don't accept what you're bringing down to us. And that's why you're on the Board of Ed, and every single one of you have an opinion, and you have the authority to do that. So I hope that you take whatever you would have said, use your authority in your vote, and say, hey, if you don't like what's brought down, you could say, pick something else. But I've noticed over the years, it's always a janitor, Marty Sanchaw, he's saving money, we get rid of him. Arts, sports, it's always the emotional things that come down. So that's my opinion, and over the years, good luck with your budget.
Walter Seaman, a member of the town. There's been a lot of discussion and debate over the needs of our elementary schools. I'd just like to say it's a natural reaction, hostility, when our children are being told or feel that they are hurt. And as parents, our instinct is protect those children. I know when I hear if my child was involved in some form of altercation, my mind immediately goes that the other child is about 9 feet tall, 420 pounds, and built like a WWE wrestler. And that they were body slammed off the top rope in a wrestling ring. Not inaccurate, completely inaccurate, but that's what's in my mind. Then as parents, to justify our instinct, we look to place blame. I don't think that in these situations there's anywhere to place blame. Not the Board of Ed, certainly not the teacher, and certainly not the administrators. If we want to place blame, let's blame nature. We take 27 6- and 7-year-olds and we put them in a small space. Now let's take 20 of them and make those boys. I was one of those boys. All right, I was one of those. I had Miss Dunn in 2nd grade, and I had Miss Finan in 3rd grade. And God rest their souls because they're in heaven because they had me as a child. I'm going out and saying that. Okay? So, we have an opportunity here to correct. I'm not going to use the word problem because I don't think we have a problem. I think we have a situation that the Board of Ed had made an educated decision back to cut one teacher based on the information that they had and the data that they received. A lot of times we know the cost of things, but we don't understand the value of them, and that's important. I believe that it would be irresponsible, and I'm going to go as far as say negligent, for any of the board member to vote against the teacher and correct this situation. I'd like to end on a positive note. We are fortunate in this community to have a lot of men and women that work within our school system. Some of them making no more than an employee at McDonald's. They play many roles, not just educators. They play coaches. They play friend. They play mentor. And at some point, and then sometimes warranted, they play the role of a parent. I think we need to send a message to these men and women, some of them who are here in this room, that they have the backing of the Board of Education, they have the backing of the parents, and they have the backing of the citizens of this town, and that they have our gratitude. So I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to take the podium? We have about 5 more minutes the board gave. Going once? Going twice? Okay, thank you.
Melissa, can I ask a question?
Sure can.
Mr. King, can you get up to the mic for a second?
Did you want to ask me a question?
No, I want to ask Mr. King a question. Just a question.
No debate, right?
No debate.
Okay.
Just a question.
All right.
I noticed you don't bring your band program to Virginia Beach anymore?
We do a spring trip. I've done a spring trip every year.
Mm-hmm.
The location varies. We've done Virginia Beach probably 4 or 5 times last year. This year is Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay, all right, that was, that's,
It was
that was just,
approved,
that
I
was
think,
just
the
my,
first
I was
meeting.
just,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was a reason why you didn't go to, that's
Yeah.
all.
So
I'm
we
good to go.
switched the
Yep, I'm
locations,
good to go,
okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, you ready? Okay, I would like a motion for our consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Karen?
Second.
Melissa? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have a discussion about the consent.
Okay.
On the last page, it states internal 2019 ESY coordinator. Is that the line item on the budget that they're requesting because the job is being posted? You see what I'm saying?
The ESY coordinator is a position that's posted yearly. They're in charge of our summer programming for special education students. So that's
I apologize. Okay.
So we post it now because there's work to do now to get ready for the summer program.
Okay, I apologize. I thought it was
No.
something in the line budget.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All right, so new business, do you want to take it?
Do you want to start it?
Sure. Okay, so, we added this line item, to our agenda. It's basically, the board is gonna discuss currently, discussion and possible action on Plymouth Center School. So I'm opening it up to the board to have a discussion. And whoever wants to start, please, but please address me, do not go at each other. I wanna keep
I
this.
have a question.
Sure.
Why did the students from Fall Mountain get shipped all the way across town to Plymouth Center School?
Are you talking about like the district
Can
lines?
Can I answer that?
Yes, you can.
I can answer that. Okay. So when we went to the new high school, and then Fisher and Plymouth Center, the lines got redrawn in town. Okay, and how they redrew the lines was basically how many kids needed to go here and how many kids needed to go there. There were some parents that were very, very happy that their kids were going to Plymouth Center, and there were some parents that were very unhappy because they were at Plymouth Center and ended up having to go to Eli Terry. So it just came down to the demographics of the town, and this is how the line was drawn. So, and in all honesty, there are people that I know personally that live maybe a mile from me, and they go to Plymouth Center, which I can't understand why they don't go to Eli Terry. So that was something that was done.
Fisher? You mean
I mean, Fisher, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So that was something that was done. I know Karen and I were on the board.
15 years ago.
Karen and I were on the board back then, okay?
Karen's been
And
on the board forever.
yes, I know. But Karen and I were part of that, and that had to do with the way, with the new high school coming in, Eli, the old high school becoming the middle school, and then how they put people so that there would be an equal amount of kids in each school.
So, does that
Okay.
answer your question? All right, so let's get back to the discussion at hand. Does anybody want to start the discussion?
Well, I'll start. So what do we, all right, so we're discussing the staffing issue.
Yes.
So which we know what the issue is with staffing.
Mhm.
Okay, initially, it was 22 in the end of June. August, we found out there was 27. We as a board tried to rectify that in September with one tutor for 3.
November.
Probably around November, we
Yeah,
added the
November.
first tutor.
Okay, well, I think what we had a discussion about it, then by the time we voted yes and
Yes.
then hired someone, okay? I brought to the table in October a teacher that was denied. So now we're fast forwarding to where we are now. I do believe, I think in September, or maybe a possibility of October, I had made mention that we weren't being proactive, we were being reactive. Karen, if you remember, I have to go back. You know, unfortunately, Karen and I have been here a long, long time. We had an issue at Fisher Elementary School in kindergarten where we had an influx of students that all of a sudden came in. So we decided as a board at that time to add 3 tutors to that kindergarten class. We knew at the time that it was only going to be on a temporary basis because it would factor out once they got to first grade, and that was it. So we fixed the problem, and we didn't have any, if I can recall, I don't know, Karen, maybe you can, but I don't recall any issues once we did that. So I think, in all honesty, we should have been a little bit more proactive at the beginning of the school year than we are now. So, is there any recommendations from the superintendent on what we should be doing with this class?
So I'm gonna let the superintendent take that, but what I asked him to do was basically have a scenario with another tutor and or a teacher added. So I'll let him take that.
Yeah, when we look at this, obviously, the two options that we see are adding the tutor to the second grade class, or in some cases, people have talked about adding a full-time teacher.
And to be clear, you're talking about this current school year.
Yeah,
Right.
for this current year.
Yeah, please clarify
Yeah.
that,
Yes,
so
this
everybody
year.
understands what we're discussing.
The discussion about 1920 budget
Is later.
will come next. So this is completely separate from, although there are some connections to the 1920 budget as we talk about this. So our recommendation is that we add a tutor. And I want to talk about why. And then, of course, you guys should have some back and forth conversation as well. Our belief is that if we add a full-time tutor to grade 2 class now, we'd be able to dedicate that tutor to the grade 2 classroom. Our first response was to add a tutor to support grade 2 and grade 1. Keep in mind that there's 26 students in grade 1 at Plymouth Center and 25. So our goal was to try to support them, and we had said at the time we thought it was a measured response. We didn't know if it was going to be enough, and we said that there might be more, and that's why a couple weeks ago I suggested to the board that we should be posting for a tutor, because I think we should get somebody in there, because we had seen some other issues coming up. So the tutor would, if we hired an additional tutor, the new one or a tutor would work to support purely the grade 2 class. So they'd have a full-time tutor. Could the tutor be pulled?
5 days a week.
5 days a week,
5
yeah.
days a week.
I know in some cases a tutor is seen as someone who supports a classroom for 4 days a week, but that's generally support reading. It's usually to support pull-out. This would be a 5-day-a-week tutor. That would have a couple of benefits. One, it would support the grade 2 class for those 5 days. Yes, the tutor could be pulled. We know that sometimes when absences occur, we pull our tutors, but we would work with Ms. Collins to make sure that particular tutor stays in the classroom as much as possible. And we would have to pay attention to that, because if it starts getting pulled more than we're comfortable with, and I wouldn't be comfortable with having it pulled more than once every 2 weeks, quite frankly. So we'd have to pay attention to that. The tutor would be there to provide the support to the teacher. You heard the parents say that this is not an issue about the teacher. This is an issue that there's just too many bodies in the building, in the room. So the tutor would be able to provide not just educational support, but actually that behavioral support as well. They'd be able to manage behaviors, provide more opportunities for the to help the teacher with that management. But in addition, he or she would be able to break the classroom up into smaller sizes by taking groups of children into another location to provide education as appropriate, and as the teacher would decide what needed to happen. So there could be a lesson on reading or math where the tutor might take 6, 7, 8, 10 students. And it wouldn't be the same students all the time. It would be dependent upon what the data is showing, what needs to be learned for that particular day. On a side note, our second grade students in that classroom are actually performing very well academically. You have heard some of the concerns about some of the behaviors. We also believe that the tutor would be able to provide more assistance to the specials teachers. So the tutor could go to the art class. The tutor could go to the music class as appropriate. So they'd be able to provide those teachers with additional support as well. So that is where we believe would help the second grade teacher. The tutor that's currently there would then be able to support the 2 first grade teachers. And the 2 first grade teachers would get more support from the current tutor who's already in existence in the building. So it also helps the first grade teachers by adding that particular tutor. The teacher, some of the issues that we have some concerns about a teacher is if you were to try to hire a teacher at this time, trying to find a highly qualified teacher in February is not going to be your easiest job. My guess would be, and I don't have a crystal ball, that you would find somebody who was very brand new, out of the box, likely someone who's been looking for a job but can't get one. Now, they could be a quality person. They could absolutely be one of the best. They could end up being a shining star. But the likelihood that somebody who doesn't have a job right now is a shining star, because the shining stars get hired in summer and actually in April, May, prior to school year. So that's something to consider, that one, they would likely be a very new person, someone who doesn't have a terrific background in education. And you're hearing stories from the parents, that they're concerned about challenging behaviors. So you would have some of the students that they're referring to working with a very new teacher. The other thing is that they won't know the grade 2 curriculum. So there's going to be a very steep learning curve for that particular teacher. They're going to take a while to get up to speed to make sure they're very aware of the curriculum. And finally, that rapport piece would all have to be built again. Ms. LaValle will have built a rapport with all these grade 2 students, and now the principal would work to decide which students would be going into this new teacher's class and which students would be staying with their current teacher. And that would be a principal decision. That wouldn't be the board's decision. You won't be deciding which kids go into which classes. That lies with the principal, and I'm sure she would work with the teacher to get input on the best way to break that up. So we're concerned about the learning curve and what we would get if we hired a teacher. The other piece you have to consider is, if you were to hire a teacher now, it probably should be hired as a long-term sub, because you don't know how the budget's going to work out this year. And so if you hire a full-time teacher and then are not able to continue or sustain that teacher next year, and I know the hope might be to have that teacher next year. If you hire a full-time teacher now and have to lay them off, you're taking on an additional cost of unemployment. So you have to be aware of that, and unemployment is not cheap. And it's just something that has to be paid attention to as well. So we do support the tutor at this time. And I know there's be a whole other conversation of what we should do for next year, but we think that would be the case. And as I said in the first tutor, I think we need to pay attention to what that additional tutor would do, because you'd have to see what happens. Because I don't have a crystal ball in front of me about how this would specifically help. I can't tell you that everything will become perfect when you add that tutor. I'm not going to sit here and say that. So we'd want to assess and see how things are going. And within a month, you might say, okay, where are we at? How are things going? Is that extra pair of hands, extra pair of eyes, the ability to break up the students where we haven't been able to do that? And additionally, we are fortunate to have one of our teachers who provides a lot of support to students, who's been out all year, coming back in this month too. And I believe that particular teacher will provide another level of support that's been missing from the building this year. And I believe that is another factor that we haven't really talked about publicly, but I do believe that has an impact on the overall effect of some of the students. So that's our recommendation. Happy to answer questions. I know Jen might be able to add something else, but I don't know if I've missed any part of.
I would support everything you said. I can't think of anything off the top of my head to add to that right at this moment.
But there might be questions or things like that. But that's our recommendation.
I'll let Dick go first.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dick.
I can see where this would help. My question is, this person who's been causing all this havoc in the second grade, is it one kid, 2 kids, or more? Is there anything being done to remove that child from the classroom at certain times or permanently or whatever? Is there a place for him or her to be placed outside of that classroom so it's not happening with all these parents' kids?
I don't really think it's appropriate to talk about individual students. I would say that for any student who's having specific issues, there's generally a number of processes that the school would be going through. So I really don't want to get too involved in that, but you heard from when they were talking about the Dean of Students having behavioral aspects to the SRBI process, which is the whole tiered process to deal with academics and behaviors. There are students in our classes throughout the district that are on behavior plans. Some of those behavior plans may be initiated through special education process, where they actually might have a specific behavior plan. And with any behavior plan, you monitor it, and if it's not working, you adjust it. Just like all of us, as we set goals, we have to monitor the goals we're trying to achieve, and if we're not reaching those goals, we have to identify what things we need to change in order to meet those goals. So I would say all the students in that class are receiving the supports that they need, but that's as far as I would go to talk about any individual type student.
I have a question. Can you tell us how many times the tutor that you currently hired has had to sub or not be either in the first or second grade since you've hired them?
I don't have that information, no.
Have they been put in as a sub at any time?
I can't answer that question off the top of my head, and I wouldn't want to give you false information. I don't know if I didn't know if I saw Miss Collins here.
So the tutor hasn't been subbing?
She keeps going.
So the tutor hasn't been subbing recently?
Mrs. Collins, can you come up to the podium for me? Thank you.
I know, she's back.
I
hear
couldn't
her
even
voice.
see you. It was like, oh, there she is.
What I was trying to say is, because that tutor was hired specifically to support first and second grade, we have tried never to use that specific tutor for anything other than coverage in first or second grade. So if a first or second grade teacher is absent, then we would use that tutor in that role. But we have tried not to pull her for anything other than that purpose. We have used our other tutors throughout the building fairly frequently, unfortunately. And I have a record of exactly who's pulled for what purpose for every day of the school year, and I could get you that information at any time.
So the tutor hasn't been pulled at all?
No, maybe once. And then we quickly went about switching it out from then on.
Since Mrs.
But
Collins
I could provide you the whole, from day one of the school year, because it's quite the shuffle from day to day.
Okay. Honestly, Marty, you're the boss. Seriously, we hire you to manage this budget, to put us in the direction that we need to go. I just come here to make sure that the direction we're going in is in the right direction. Okay? I'm not here to micromanage anybody. All right? You make the decisions based on, and I tell people this all the time, it's all about the Benjamins. A lot of times we just don't have the money, okay? And it's not because we didn't get this whole amount of money. It's just that the Board of Finance and or the elders in this town council, have decided that in order to keep the mill rate at a comfortable level, these are what the town gets, and this is what the Board of Education gets. All right? So, personally, I will tell you something about, I will have to agree with you with the teacher. We only have, what, approximately 80 days left?
It's about 80, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, under 80.
If we hired a teacher right now, by the time you hired that teacher, Karen, would you say March? Middle of March?
Probably. And then to get up to speed?
Now, you're a teacher,
End of
Karen.
March.
I'm asking you because you're a teacher, okay? So the thing is that it's probably not feasible to look at the teacher right now because it's too late. Also, when you split the class, are we gonna have people coming up next month or the month after going, how come my son Johnny's not in with Ralph, or vice versa? So then that's the other Pandora's box that you open up. So I think right now, personally, I couldn't justify hiring a teacher at this point in time for that second grade class to finish out the school year. My personal opinion is that we go with the tutor, but I want to make sure that that tutor is specific to that class. Doesn't
I'm going to go ahead and agree with Jerry because I don't often get to do this, so agree with him wholeheartedly.
Jesus, it's gonna snow.
I would say that, Dr. Semmel, you said you wouldn't be comfortable with the tutor being pulled more than once every other week. I would not be comfortable with that tutor being pulled ever. And I need that kind of commitment, I think, to support that.
If we have that kind of reassurance, I have no problem with the tutor either. Staying in that class all the time. And pulling 5 to 6 kids out, that's perfect. That should work with no problem.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I would like to see somebody, whoever it is, has some kind of a background in discipline. Not somebody just starting out in the field, but somebody who, if at all possible, has.
I think that would be great, but in the essence
It's going to
of
be hard
time,
to find, but
we
if
need
you find
somebody
somebody like
who's
that,
gonna-
that would be the person I would go with.
I did mention at the Finance and Operations meeting that when we have a staff member who's been out for a while, when that staff member comes back, it will mean that I end up with another staff member without a position. So that person probably would have lost their job. And so I know I posted for an anticipated tutor, but as long as we've looked at this whole thing coming together now, it's very possible that the person would be already in our building, knows the building, pieces like that. I'd want to make sure we work with Ms. Collins and have that conversation, but that would be the person. And listen, we can tell Ms. Collins never to pull the person. I would never promise you that will never happen because I've always been told by my wife, never say never kind of thing. So I would tell you we would do our utmost best to not pull the teacher. I mean, pull the tutor from the particular class.
Yeah.
That's why I gave myself a little bit of an out once every 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, maybe if gets, if this is the decision that we decide to make, maybe we can have an update in a month on how many times that tutor's been pulled. And then, if we feel like that's excessive, and, honestly, I'm gonna think any time's excessive.
Right, I get that.
So.
I get that.
I would like to be updated.
Yep.
Frequently.
Well, what I'm thinking is if we had a flu epidemic hit and we had significant number of teachers out, it's been hard to fill, like Kelly Services fills our teachers. And we've actually hired building subs this year to help keep from having to pull our tutors because they really do support our students. But if we had a significant epidemic and we couldn't, obviously you don't want a group of third graders without a teacher at all.
Right.
So that's why you'd have to make the decision to pull the tutor. But Ms. Collins can keep track for us and give us an update. But I think she can make it so there's a high level of consistency in that classroom.
Just, anybody else?
You can go first.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I have to go too.
All right, Jerry, then I'll.
Well, just to build on what Dr. Semmel just said, I know we hadn't, I wouldn't say an issue, but there was a health issue with the individual that's coming back, okay? And I don't want to elaborate what it was, but the board knows. The thing is that I would probably utilize him at this point in time because he's only got maybe 75 days left to help facilitate what's going on between the first grade, those two classes, and the second grade. That tutor I would just separately hire. What's it going to cost us for a tutor? Paul, do you have the number on a tutor if we hired them starting, let's say, March 1st?
Yeah, we saw that.
It's about $8,000.
So for $8,000,
No, but what I was saying, Mr. Bourbonnier, is that when the teacher comes back, we've had a person covering his particular class who will be going back to her spot. And the spot she was in, somebody was covering. And so as the dominoes start to move, there is someone who doesn't, I'm mixing metaphors, but there's someone without a chair when the music stops.
Okay.
And that person, we could actually be able to retain.
Right.
That's what I meant by that.
Okay,
So
no, that's
it
fine.
will cost us that $8,000. And that is information that $8,000 to $10,000, and that was information that I provided earlier.
Is that person a teacher, or are they, what's their position now? Like, what are they considered?
The person that,
That you
that
think
could
would be
potentially
able
be the
to
tutor.
cover, yeah.
Ms. Trinks, I think you.
Tutor position.
It's a tutor.
Okay.
Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to say that at first I supported, the thought of a new teacher to this classroom, but after, thinking about it, it would be like a Pandora box, because then every time a class size is huge, they're gonna request another teacher, then since we already gave one to this class, then, you know what I mean, it's gonna happen like throughout the years. I do agree with a, full-time tutor that's not gonna get pulled for anything. And I just wanted to say that, class sizes in my district are between like 24 and 27, starting at K all the way through 5th, which could exceed 30. Just wanted to throw it out there to people. That's all I have to say.
So I think I just want to reiterate what Jerry said at first, and I would like to hear from Dr. Semmel, because a lot of the parents here are frustrated and upset, and a lot of things have been going on. So ultimately, it's your school system, your staff. What is it that you think is in the best interest of the children, the staff, and we have to, you know, look to you for guidance. I mean, it's, one of my children are in that class, so I know both sides of it right now, so.
Well, I would broaden that question a little bit, because we've heard other people bring up other topics tonight. I would tell you that this district needs significant additional funds. It didn't give me any, the reason we're here having all these folks talk about these items is because we keep saying every year when we get cut, the cuts are becoming harder and harder to make, that we're going to have to dig deeper and deeper into our programming. And that, I mean, as a musician myself, I appreciate all that they say about music, because I believe that's all true. So for the fact that I'm having to look at music programs to try to support the middle school classes, we do not have enough financial support right now. I've shown people that if we got just the state median level, we'd have $5 million more in our budget. We wouldn't be arguing right now about whether or not we needed another second grade teacher, because you wouldn't just have a second grade teacher, you'd have additional school psychologists, you'd have so many additional things. But that's not the luxury that we're in at this point. So when I talk about what I think is best at this time, I do have a constraint of how much resources the board has and how you can move forward with those resources. And that's why I have to bring forward to you tougher positions. I do feel strongly that trying to add a second teacher right now would not go well. I really do not believe that is what would go well. I do believe that adding the tutor is the most responsible move, because that tutor would be under the auspices of a knowledgeable teacher who knows the kids, who knows all the interactions of the kids, who knows who to put where, when, what to do, when to teach them, how to break them up in different times, and then the tutor could support that work. Is it a perfect solution? No. And we could be back here in a month saying, you know what, we really think to finish the year strong, maybe we should add even another body. You might say that. I can't tell you exactly what will happen when we add this person there. Will it be better? Yes. Because having another set of hands and eyes, watching the students, being able to do the things I already mentioned, will help. So it is our opinion, given where we are in this year, that and it's not just my opinion, we do talk about this as a group. I certainly, you know, although I'm knowledgeable, I don't believe that I know everything, and so I try to rely on other folks who've had experiences greater than my own in the elementary realm. So we believe collectively that the tutor makes the most sense.
And the tutor will be able to separate children so the noise level can go down.
Yep. But it won't be always. Like, it doesn't make sense to always do that, right? So there'll be times, say we're doing Reader's Workshop, right? I'm going to want the teacher who has been trained on Reader's Workshop. That's another piece about adding a teacher. If they don't have Reader Workshop training, you're going to be really putting those students behind. But you have the teacher do the mini lesson around Reader's Workshop. But then when they start to get into their own work beyond the workshop, the tutor can break up students and they can divide and conquer that way. But there are times where you want to bring the whole class together. And then there are times where it makes more sense to separate when you can.
Because a lot of the parents, the noise level is a big distraction by having 27 bodies. So just there's going to be times where you can break that up and it's not 27, teachers 28, a couple of other adults to help.
Yep.
It's over 30.
Yep. I know, and like I said, like we said before, there's 26 first graders in a classroom at Plymouth Center, and you can go into a class like that, and I did the other day, and they were all quietly doing their independent reading. So it can be 26 children, and I know sometimes there's different personalities at play, and so that's a factor, but I believe it will a child go home still and say it could be noisy? Sure, that I expect that will be, some days will happen. But the ability to separate more often, I think, will provide far greater opportunities for that quieter learning piece of it. And I mean, there was actually, I did some homework back in, and maybe this is what you're referring to, Mr. Bourbonier, but in 2015-16 in grade 3 at Fisher, you had 29 and 28 students in grade 3. And there was another time where you had 26 fifth graders, 25 fifth graders, and 25 fifth graders over at Fisher as well. So the 29 and 28, that might have been where you guys added tutors.
That was the redistricting years too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. That was in 15-16 when I went back and looked at that. So there has been some large class sizes. There may be something about this particular class itself. There may be some elements that it's just not working. Maybe those 29 gelled very well, and these 27, based on what you listened to, are.
That's a lot of boys.
I don't want to. I think boys can handle themselves quite well. Thank you. I don't think boys should all get a bad rap. So, but sometimes more energetic and younger boys sometimes tend to have more energy, let's say. But I've seen a lot of young ladies in first and second grade too have some high levels of energy. So.
Where have we had enough savings in our budget to pay for this tutor?
I could probably turn to Paul, but I do know that with our changeover in insurance, we are seeing the savings that we were hoping for. So part of the savings that we knew we were going to get went to cover that $175,000 cut we took last year as a board. That is covering part of those, but I do believe the $8,000 will be covered by this. We do have other things we'd like to purchase. We're trying to provide our teachers with things like computers. A lot of our computers in our teachers' rooms are old, so we're trying to replace computers for teachers. We're also trying to upgrade things around safety. We've been adding cameras at both elementary schools to provide better look for our administrators, but also the police station can see all of our cameras in all of our buildings. We're trying to add things like bollards, which are those things you see in front of buildings so cars can't access buildings. We're trying to add key. So there's things that we're trying to do that we haven't been able to do because we've been cut over time. So there's things like that. But I think the $8,000 is surely worth it given what we've been hearing.
Giselle, you have anything to say?
Sure. I just want to be clear that I'm talking about the end of this year, and not next year, because I have different thoughts on next year. But for this year, I would have to agree with you. As I can't imagine being a student not almost done with the school year, but what, 60% through, and then having another teacher to guide me through the rest of the 40% of the year. And I guess it's important to remember, we're not talking about the beginning of the year right now. And having another teacher in a smaller class is almost obviously better at the beginning of the year. But this far through the school year, I don't think that's better. I think having a tutor just so the kids can at least finish in the same classroom is probably the best way to go.
Jerry, I know you have something else?
Oh, I just wanted to clarify with
Okay.
Dr. Semmel that it's not the tutor that would decide who's going in breakouts. Wouldn't that be either Mrs. Collins or the teacher that would say to the tutor that you're going to take these 5 kids out
Yeah,
of
the
out
teacher
of
would
Rita's,
take charge.
out of
Yeah.
Rita's workshop, and you're
Yeah.
going to go over in that.
Yeah, the
little
teacher would.
Yeah, I
Oh, I'm
think
sorry
you,
if I
you
said the
basically
person.
said the tutor would decide. And no, I
Oh,
think
sorry.
just so everybody
No,
will
the
understand
teacher.
that. No, the teacher has the full responsibility of the class, along with Mrs. Collins, who would basically, if she needed any insight from Mrs. Collins.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
if I
it's,
misspoke.
well, there's a lot of things that are going on, and there's a lot of conversation, so not that we all misspeak, but I just wanna make sure that everybody understands that the tutor has no control over the teacher. The teacher has the control over the tutor.
I would actually like to make a motion at this time to approve a full-time tutor to support the grade 2 at Plymouth Center School for the remainder of the school year.
Second.
Second it.
Okay, Karen, and then Jerry, or Dick, pick one, who seconded.
Doesn't matter.
Any more discussion before I'm gonna do a roll call vote?
Do you have a tentative hire date or when this is gonna take place?
I do expect that staff member I mentioned before to return on February 25th. So that would probably be the soonest I can do this.
So it's like 7 school days until he gets back. Anything else? Okay, roll call. Greg,
Aye.
Jerry.
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Josiah.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much for that. We're literally gonna take like a 3 to 4 minute break. I think we need to decompress. I want to let the girls go home because I'm sure they have homework. So, can I have a motion to recess? Yes, at like 1 minute after 9.
Second.
Karen, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So moved.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So Greg, and then second by Melissa, coming out of recess. Melissa Kreml. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We're going right into unfinished business, the 2019-2020 budget. Whenever you're ready, you want to start? You
All
want
right.
to start?
So I can quickly start.
Okay.
But, so at this point, tonight, we know that you guys are going to be voting on the 1920 budget. You have a responsibility to provide a budget to the Board of Finance. Mr. Kilduff is here, and I appreciate that Mr. Kilduff has been attending a number of your meetings. He's the chair of the Board of Finance, so he gets a chance to hear some of the conversation that's going around. So he'll be well informed when it comes time to, for those presentations. So I brought to you back in January a proposed budget, and then we had our workshops and conversation around that. And you had asked that I had, cost out for you the possibility of what a additional teacher being added to Plymouth Center would cost, and also what would it cost to add a half-time music teacher to Eli Terry. So I had provided that information to you, so you have that. But really this comes down to the Board of Education deciding what you would like to do. You certainly heard from some of the public that they'd at least like the opportunity to bring this to the town council. I looked out today and I saw all the people that were here. That far outnumbers the number of people that have been at town council meetings in the past few years. So depending on what you do, or no matter what you do, really, I'm hoping the families come out and say what their, give their support for the budget that you do vote on tonight, because I do believe that the support of the families goes a long way. Because we have been listening, and I know you have been listening to the parents who've come out and the students who have spoken so eloquently throughout the process. So, we're here to support you. I know Mr. Hendrickson has the budget, trying to make sure whatever we come up to, we have an exact dollar amount that you can vote on. If we need a recess just to confirm that number before you vote on it, I'll make sure that Paul feels comfortable that the number we're giving to you is a completely accurate number. So I don't want you to vote on something that we were had any confusion over. So
I would love to know the number of the budget, the way you presented it to us, with those two additions you just spoke of.
So,
I saw it,
yep,
but I don't remember.
let me pull it out. Exactly. So, just for your clarification, the proposed budget, and Mr. Hendrickson, just make sure you're double checking this for me, please. But my proposed budget is $24,516,665. That's correct. Which was a 1.992% increase. What we gave to you were a minimum and a maximum range. So what we said to you in a document, we had said to you that the minimum that we think those positions would cost the board would be $74,949, and that would be hiring people at lower steps, not taking, they don't take any insurance, and that the maximum it could be at was $144,343. These are difficult to predict because I don't know what I'm going to get for a candidate pool when we go out to hire. We don't know we certainly don't know what they're going to need for insurance, and we're certainly not going to hire based on insurance needs, right? So family benefits are obviously more costly than single benefits, so that does have an impact.
And we offer insurance benefits to 0.5 positions as
yeah,
well?
0.5 teacher would get benefits, full benefits.
All right.
So if you wonder, Mr. Hendrickson and I had some conversations about what would be a fair middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
What would we predict? We predict the round number would be about $100,000 to hire those two positions that have been discussed. There's no complete science to that decision, but in just conversation and in just my previous experience in terms of what I think I would be able to accomplish, that seems like a reasonable cost for those two positions.
So is it fair to say that if we were to approve adding those two new positions at your mid prediction, that the new budget amount that we would bring forward to the town, to the Board of Finance, would be $24,616,665. That was too big of a number for me to say.
It's a lot, yeah.
So 24,616,665.
Yeah, that would be
That's
accurate.
correct, and that would be a 2.408%
Okay.
increase.
408, yeah.
Don't tell my fifth graders I struggled.
What was the word?
Right, just for clarification reasons, that's adding a teacher to Plymouth Center for the 3rd grade.
And a half-time at the middle school.
And a half-time music teacher.
Yes.
Okay, and that would allow Mr. King to stay
Well, obviously.
at the
yes.
high school.
That'd be the obvious reason.
Which would technically enhance our music program at the middle school.
Right. We
So
would just be
that-
enhancing the middle school program.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's also,
So-
it's not just even enhancing, it's a need. You know, it's
Oh, no,
not-
I understand
yeah.
it, okay.
So I want to
that-
make that clear, like we need that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of
person.
things we need.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we need, you're right.
You know, there's a lot of things we need.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what we can get and what we can't get.
Okay.
Okay.
That second number would be the one you'd be shooting for.
The 24,616,665.
which is probably reasonable if you were low on 74 and high on 144.
Right. We think it's a reasonable.
It's a middle ground.
Yeah, I would probably say that's a pretty good number, Paul. No, seriously, you know.
Well, the high side took family benefits for both and took the higher steps. The lower one was just the lowest steps possible to hire those people. So the average of those numbers is just a little over $100,000, which would be reasonable.
Paul, I know you're relatively new, but in previous budget proposals that we've done, now Marty, and you've been here, what, 3 years now?
About to start my 5th in
March.
March.
All right. What's the largest number that you've ever presented to the Board of Finance?
Us?
You mean percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise, I'm not talking about.
Wasn't last year's
percent.
0.29%.
Well, right, I mean, we were basically flat last year, and we lost $175,000. So it doesn't matter, but I'm just wondering have we ever been in the realm, since you've been here, around 3%?
No.
Yeah, we haven't, right?
No.
That I've requested?
I can't, of the 8 years I went back, I can only remember 3 years being over 1%.
Well, that's what we've ended up actually getting.
Oh,
Not what we've asked.
I didn't know you were going to ask that question, Jerry.
No, the only reason I'm asking that is because we can go in and ask for that 2.4. If we get 0.5, it's like anything else. It's slash and burn.
Yeah, I do think at this point, though, we need to respect what many people have said and said, bring it to the town. Let us fight for it, too.
Oh, no, but those people have to come, Karen.
They're going to, Jerry.
I can't be the guy up there.
I know.
You know, Karen,
I know.
This year I'm bringing the Fram oil filter with me. I am bringing
You don't have a filter.
I'm bringing the Fram oil filter with me. Okay? You know I brought that in many. It's the pay me now, pay me later mentality.
I
This
know.
town doesn't get it.
I know.
Okay? Nobody wants to pay me now. They want to pay me later. And the later never comes.
Right.
And then we get to this point where we have to have a discussion
Yeah.
over social emotional learning.
Right.
Okay? So that's the problem that I have right now.
Yes.
And I also have some problems too with pitting schools against one another too. This school gets that school gets that, how come they get this? I'm having issues with that.
Yeah.
This is a school district.
Right.
It's not school against school, administrator against administrator, parents against parents. I say this all the time, and everybody tells me when I first came on the board, it's all about the kids. Not 500 over there, 200 over there, 300. It's all of them.
Yep.
We're all encompassed in giving everybody a free and equitable educational experience in this town. I will flat out tell you, my kids went to Prospect Street, Main Street, and Fisher Elementary School because of the way we went with voting and stuff, okay? My kids have no problems with education in this town. None whatsoever, okay? Yes, they tried college. College wasn't for them. They decided to go work for a living because maybe Dad gave them a work ethic. I don't know. But like I tell most people, the reason why I got out of management was because I decided to get paid below the shoulders instead of above the shoulders. Maybe my kids take the same mentality that I have too.
Well, for purposes of further discussion, I would like to make a motion to approve the budget for 2019-2020 school year in the amount of $24,016,665.
Second.
Oh. Karen, I'll give it to Melissa because she took that. Okay, so now that the motion's on the floor, we can have some more discussion.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I know that you had taken your time to put together this budget, and then with everyone coming out, you decided to add on to the budget to make it a 2.408% increase, which is the largest that you've ever gone to the town for. Did you think of going through the budget to see what you could eliminate to make these two positions more feasible?
I'm gonna just answer that myself. There's been many discussions with a lot of people personally with me, and something resonated, and I'm actually gonna go to Karen. Every year since I've been on this board, she has said, A, why aren't we telling the town what we really need, and B, why are we always giving money back? And I am of the opinion this year that we need to let the town and the Board of Finance know that this is what our administrators feel that we need and what our parents are asking for. So why not ask? Why not ask?
And the only thing I would just add is the budget we brought to you was difficult enough to put together. The fact that I myself was looking at music program tells us that we are trying to provide a budget to the town knowing what we've been getting in the past. Because if I could look like a hero, I could have come here with a 5% budget, everyone would be like, oh, this is great, but actually there would have been crickets. Not one parent would have had any concern. I came in this year really just with a legitimate, this is what we absolutely need, and here's how I think we can make it work. I didn't intend to have as many parents come out to talk about these things, but in the end, I'm actually glad, because we haven't seen the parents coming out to defend the budgets, and we see what's been occurring when we get to the town council. So we have been so efficient with so many parts of our budget. We are truly getting to the point where there's just nothing else. So that's why I went to things like, well, we think we might be able to move part of Mr. Keene's position into the middle school to support that particular position. We think that we can have a tutor support the third grade class next year, because a full-time tutor would be able to support a larger class than we typically see, but not the largest class we've seen in this district. So that's why we were trying to make those decisions to keep our overall percent reasonable, especially compared to, Mr. Hendrickson said, we've been essentially getting 0 to 1%. I was going for double that. You know, so I was trying to, again, we talk about balancing the needs of the town, because I know we're going to hear about mill rates and things like that, with the needs of the students. So I don't believe that there's anything else in the budget that I can go in and, you know, I could say, well, they can't, we won't give, we'd have to start cutting supplies. We'd tell the principals, well, let's cut $10,000 out of your supply lines. But then you're going to start hearing about, you know, we don't have enough paper for the kids, or we don't have, you know, the right markers, or we don't have whiteboards for the kids. You'll hear those things. So why would we take that from kids? So there's really nothing here that we can keep cutting from. Not in good faith. Not in good faith.
Okay, so I'll voice my displeasure about this budget. Okay, and as I referred to previously, is now we're pitting schools against one another. Okay, and I have a huge problem with the dean of students at the elementary school. Huge problem with that. Okay, I personally feel, in talking to people in town, that that's an administrative position. As much as everybody says, no, it's a teacher position, has nothing. The perception in town is that's an administrative position adding. Okay, so my concerns is that if we have behavioral problems at Fisher Elementary School, which we do have behavioral problems in that second grade class over at Plymouth Center, do we need to put a dean of students at Plymouth Center too, to alleviate the problems of the concerns of the parents over there? Because that's what it's going to get to, okay? Because this year we're going to put a dean of students at Fisher Elementary. Next year, now I'm not saying it's going to be those same parents, but the other parents that are on the other side of town who have some social emotional learning problems with certain individuals in that school, and the new principal is having issues with these kids because they're relatively new in the school system, where someone like Mrs. Wahunsky was, I do believe, for what, 15 years she was at Fisher? Okay? You got Mrs. Collins, how long have you been at Plymouth Center?
15 years.
All right, so now this new administrator coming in doesn't know the students, doesn't know the physical attributes of what goes in there now decides that I need one too. Okay, yeah, everybody here have to understand that once you set precedent, you know, it comes along, and then when you have to get rid of that precedent, what happens? Okay, do you have to decide that I keep the dean of students, but I get rid of 2 teachers? All right, do I keep the dean of students, but I have to eliminate the music program? All right, my big thing, and Mrs. Lassie, are you still here? Probably not. But she did mention some of the issues that go on with band that go along with what gets incorporated in the school system. There was another parent who basically said that their child has to in taking band, takes an AP course, but can't go to band. So we offer these programs for these high school kids, but in order to get into college, they want to take that AP course to get credit for, so they don't have to take it again in college, but yet they got to give up the band. So if we turned around and said, okay, not a problem, what if we did that with kids who played basketball? Well, you have a choice. You either take AP or take basketball. Yeah, but basketball is extracurricular. Doesn't matter. Band becomes something that's integrated in the program of the school where sports isn't. So what do you do? Tell the kids, well, if you take AP, you can't play basketball. You can't play soccer because that's the criteria. That's, I think, where we're starting to get at. I know one year when I wasn't even on the board, Mr. Wenzel, who was a board member at that point in time, at the old board offices basically said, let's get rid of sports. At the next meeting, there was like 100 people there that was like irritated because they were going to get rid of sports, okay? There are certain things that you have to touch at people's hearts in order to get them to come out and advocate for what they think this school system is, all right? So as I stated, I have a huge issue with that dean of students at Fisher Elementary. I think maybe we should go in a different way where do we need to hire someone from Ed Connection? Ed Advanced, okay. That, like a behavioral specialist to go in there 3 or 4 days a week where we don't pay any benefits to help Mrs. Loveland and what she's doing. Okay, so she can focus her attention on staff and get the numbers for that school up to where they should be. Okay? Because one thing I will flat out tell you, put a dean in students, I better see within 1 year a significant increase in test scores. Significant. I'm not talking about 5%. I want to see 10 to 15. I want to see that school equated with Plymouth Center.
Well, I don't know that that's a fair.
I'm just, that's me personally.
Yeah, it could be your
I'm
personal
talking
opinion,
about
but-
me personally.
Yeah.
Those are the goals that I would want. I would personally want that,
Well,
okay?
we want that.
Yeah, but
anyway.
it doesn't matter. That's me personally. I'm speaking from the heart and from where I'm coming from. I would expect that there would be a huge increase in whatever test scores between ELA and I think math. Is that what it is in Smarter Balance?
Yep. And science.
And science? Okay. All right. Those are my expectations. Anybody else on the board, they have their own expectations. Mine is I would be looking at double digit.
Okay, I would be looking at there being less disruptions in the school day and perhaps a more, an environment more conducive to learning, which would in turn eventually make the scores go up. But I think to put that short of a time frame on it might be difficult.
Sorry if I set my goals a little too high.
Dr. Summel, could you please educate me on something having to do with discipline in the schools? I think I understand it generally. I asked this in one of the workshops, and I want to make sure I completely understand what the actual disciplinary process is, starting from teacher and going on to wherever it needs to go.
The entire discipline process from teacher to wherever it needs
If the
to
student's
go?
disruptive.
There's, I mean, you could, it's kind of like, the branches of that question can go in, like, we could be here for well longer than people want to be, but I'll try to answer as succinctly as I can. So, depending on what the student is doing, the teacher is gonna provide the first line of defense. The teacher is the primary behavioral response in any classroom. We expect our teachers to provide good routines and structures, and to provide consequences, and to reach out to families when, to partner with the families to do all those things. When a child continues to act out and have problems that the teacher is having difficulty with, that's when the principal or assistant principal, depending on the school, may become involved. And depending on what is happening, you could go in a whole host of directions. So it could be from children being, there's things like after-school detentions that can happen, there's suspensions that can happen, but we try to change behavior by getting them into a tiered approach. So again, depending on what you're dealing with, we do have specialists, school psychologists, social workers. We even have a board-certified behavioral analyst who may come in and look at what's going on and make suggestions. But really, the primary 80% of those behaviors is going to be dealt with by the classroom teacher. But what we're seeing, and I'm connecting this to the dean question, what you're seeing at Fisher is what you've listened to in terms of the Plymouth Center School Grade 2. You have a lot of that going on across K-5 at Fisher Elementary School. You have a number of students who need additional support. It's not just a few students. Plymouth Center right now is at a situation where they have very few incidents. Ms. Collins runs an excellent school. She has excellent teachers. They do a great job. Ms. Loveland runs an excellent school. They have fantastic teachers. But the students coming to Fisher right now have greater need of support. K-5. And that's why the Dean of Students is necessary, because they can't get to all the situations that need to be dealt with. And you don't just want to have, I have a behavior so you get consequence. It can't just be, I did something bad, I get a consequence. Behavior has to be about learning, has to be about, that's what families do at home, and we love the families who do a great job with that, because boy, those kids are really easy to teach. But there's other situations that are more challenging than that, and we can't always count on what's going on at home. And there could be a host of reasons for that. It could be a mom who's working her tail off, and she might be the only one doing it, and so there's maybe less support in the house than perhaps somewhere else. So we do have to take on added responsibilities. And the way our population is currently going to our two elementary schools, Fisher Elementary School needs that support. That's why we've recommended the dean. We talked about the number of incidents that have occurred at Fisher versus Plymouth Center during the year. It's drastically different. The number of kids who need Tier 3 responses at Fisher are far greater than Plymouth Center currently. I could never say what's going to happen, who's going to move where, what's going to happen with population. I can't speak to that, but I know what we have right now, and that's the need of someone who's going to provide a consistent support to the principal. You heard all the teachers come up from Fisher the other day and talk about why this has been going on for multiple years, and now this is a support that they really want to get behind. So I don't know if I answered your question completely, but it really does go in a lot of...
I actually would like to add just a little bit to that.
Yes, please, Karen.
I believe that many adults feel like school is like it was when they were there. And what I can tell you is that most teachers I teach with, and I'll only speak for them because I only know their experiences, believe that there are very, very few consequences allowed to teachers now. We can't keep them in from recess. We can't keep them after school because they have to get home. There's very few things teachers can do in those situations. So we rely on the other people in the building to help us with those things and to hopefully provide those students with teaching so that they can alter the behaviors rather than just being punished, if that makes a little bit of sense. But it's not, I know when I was in school, teachers could take your recess away like that. We literally can't do that anymore.
It's against the law.
Right. So there's very
against
little.
the law?
Yeah.
There's very little that teachers can do to provide a consequence to a behavior.
Yeah, kids deserve recess. and legislators have put that into legislation. So, my
may feel
job is to,
differently.
my job is to support, I have to follow the laws of the state of Connecticut. That's,
I just wanted to give a little
if you say
shout
so.
out there for
So,
I
our
do say
hands
so.
are very
I know,
tied.
I know. I think that was very good that you just said that, because I think it is important that while I'm in the same camp as Jerry, I wouldn't vote for a dean of students position either. I get that you're putting it out there because you have to go on the hand that you're dealt with the laws of the state of Connecticut and everything else in the educational system. And based on the disciplinary system, you just told me that we do here, and I'm sure the vast majority of school districts in Connecticut do as well. Basically, where I'm hung up on is I find that the two problems with the main two problems, other than the music teacher that we've been talking about, is the second grade teacher and the dean of students. That's where it seems like most of the conversation is, other than the music teacher. Those both seem to be coming from the same area to me. People could disagree, but to me, they're both a disciplinary problem. For the second grade, the parents came up here, and I have no reason to doubt them, that their kids don't like being there, it's a bad place, it's tough. But I also believe the principal of the school, who's been saying that the educational standards are staying high. I have no reason to doubt our principal there either. But the same thing for the dean of students. We're being requested by the principal there that she needs a dean of students because the discipline is too much. There's so much going on, and it's taking so much out of her day. And I believe her. I believe that it's taking a ton out of her day to go through everything that she has to go through in disciplining the students. Because what I was just told from Dr. Semmel is that the discipline is not simple. That you can't. A teacher is powerless, not powerless. Is a teacher has their hands tied, as a vice chair just told me, and I find that to be the issue. And also the issue is I have a serious philosophical disagreement with the idea that we need to do things for students that their parents should be doing for them. And I realize I'm being a little bit general there. And I also realize that there's going to be people on this board who disagree with me. But since the two problems that we've been talking about today are the second grade and the dean of students, I figure why not any other time than now to get this out there. If we have a student who is apparently misbehaving, or you said in Fisher there's a significant amount of students, I was told it was about 90% to 10%, maybe 10% is an issue, 90% is doing well. I believe the principal said that during the workshop, and that makes sense. And I understand that we have a public school system and that we have to do everything we can for every single student, and that's what we should be doing. But what we're supposed to be doing is educating the students. And if 90% of the students are doing what they're supposed to do, they're listening, because maybe it's just because their parents at home are helping them out, their parents at home are giving them a great home life, and maybe the other 10% don't have a good home life. That is a reality. I completely understand that. 10% of the students might have a terrible home life, and then a teacher has to deal with that when they get to school. I just don't think it is the school district's responsibility inherently to do the job that a parent is supposed to do, as in, let's teach the child how to be a good person. If a child then goes home and then they're taught how to, if that's completely undone, well, the child's going to go right back to school and then get taught the same exact lesson again, go back home, and the lesson's going to be undone. I just don't think it's a school's responsibility to be the parent of a child. And I feel like adding the dean of students because, rightly, and I think you're saying, well, look at the disciplinary process we have here. We have to add a dean of students. I agree, but the disciplinary process that we have seems like the principal is so busy with all the discipline that we have to add a dean of students. I'm saying I just don't like the disciplinary process in general. I don't like how much we're trying to morally sculpt these kids into being something that they're just not learning at home. And I just don't think that's something a school board can change. That's where I am.
One thing I just want to say about that is, I actually believe that public education, one of the reasons that it exists is to help all children be able to go beyond where maybe their family is. The whole idea of education is that you can lift yourself up and perhaps go beyond and be what you want to be. And some of our kids need more from us in order to get there. You know, so there are kids who have disabilities and have situations, but they can do phenomenal things with their lives. And so part of what public education does is try, even though they're not starting on equal playing fields, to try to provide what we can to them, to give them an opportunity to be successful. Are we successful in every case? No. But I really believe that, say it's 10%, they need us more than the other 90%. They actually need us more. Do they give us more headaches? Do I probably have less hair because of them? All that's true, but I really do believe that it's a major responsibility of ours to help all students. And that means they could have a special disability, but they could also just come from very difficult situations. And that's how it's always been a part of my philosophy of education, is to do that. So I get it can be frustrating. We often talk about the good work we do during the day can be undone at night, because behavior needs to be learned and it needs to be reinforced, and it needs to be learned and reinforced. But that doesn't mean that we should give up on that.
I think you are 100% right, and I don't even think we're having an argument here or disagreement. I think the only thing I would say is what you're saying generally. If that 10% is having some serious issues, all I'm disagreeing on is whose responsibility is to help it. If the parents aren't there, we also have laws in the United States for parents who are negligent to their children. If the kids go back home and their home is a nightmare, there is, obviously this is worst case scenario, but we have, what is that, the Department of Children and Family, we have DCF. DCF will come and say, all right,
They will not.
They will not.
I'm going to interject right there.
And I will agree
They
with
will
Karen.
not.
Well,
Trust me.
We've probably called DCF 60 times this year.
You would be amazed at what actually has to happen for DCF to step in.
You're probably right, and I probably would be,
just to get a phone call.
I'd probably be slightly
Yeah.
surprised. I worked with Senator Markley, and we talked to some constituents, and it does seem like the DCF has their own issues. I guess what I'm saying is something that a parent can't do and DCF won't do, I just find it to be a mistake that school districts are trying to do. They don't have the resources, they don't have the ability. And what I'm hearing is 90% of the students are struggling because of it, and 10% of the students are forcing that through whatever reason. Their parents are not doing their jobs, or they have a tough home life, or I don't want to include people with disabilities in that. That's not part of the conversation. That's different. It's just students who can't, what you're saying, they can't just be said, hey, you have a detention. All right, you didn't listen to that. All right, you have another detention. Or you have an in-school suspension. You have an out-of-school suspension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, going down the line until it's the end of the road. What I'm hearing is, no, we can't do that. Then I find there'll be a problem, because if DCF, if it's such an issue with a child, they're such a bad child that we can't do. We have to implement so many school and district resources.
I just don't like the term bad child. This is
I'd
a
like
child
you
that's
to meet
having,
my son.
you know,
I would like you to meet my son.
I want Melissa to go,
But-
because she's been waiting very patiently.
So I want to make sure that I'm very clear on Title I funding.
okay.
I believe that in the workshops it was discussed, and forgive me if I'm wrong, Title I funding is where we're paying for this Dean of Students, correct? So if we don't get this Dean of Students, if we decide not to put this Dean of Students in our budget, what are we doing with that Title I money?
It would be another form of support for the documented need at Fisher.
Okay. So it can only be used for Fisher, for the documented needs for Fisher. So we couldn't use that money to pay for another teacher at Plymouth Center. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear and I understand that, and everybody else at this table understands that. Thank you.
So the first that I heard of a dean of students is when we had to do a budget cut at the middle school, eliminate an assistant principal, and then put a dean of students into place. And at the middle school, we have social media, cell phones, hormones, and I can see where that would take place, where you would definitely need a dean of students, and you did have the services of an assistant principal. Mr. Semmel, you just brought up that bringing a tutor into Plymouth Center can help with managing behavioral issues and stuff like that. I think that with Fisher's scores, that they do need a lot of other services. I'm not sure if the Dean of Students is the right way to go when you can have 3 or 4 tutors helping with students to help improve their test scores. And you had just said that a tutor can help with behavioral issues. That would help the second grade class. So I do think that Fisher needs $80,000 worth of services. I'm not sure how a Dean of Students would be the right thing versus more staff in place to work hand on hand with each.
We probably do 18 tutors, so every classroom has like a tutor instead, but that's probably more expensive.
Or
We're
5 tutors, 1 for each grade.
No, we would want, so what I'm thinking about, see, the dean is a layer of support that can go K-5. The tutor we talked about with grade 2 is going to be there because there's a specific issue there. There's a identified issue going on in grade 2. So the tutor is going to be able to support these 27 students. You can't just, we won't be able to say, take a tutor and say, support these 3 5th grade classes, go. You support these 3 4th grade classrooms. It's kind of like what we tried at first with the grade 2 and grade 1 classes at Plymouth Center. We said, let's take this one tutor, support these 3 classes. It hasn't really been all that, it hasn't been as effective as we were hoping. We weren't sure it was enough. It has not been enough. So now we're adding one tutor for that one class. I would tell you that you can go into Fisher's classrooms tomorrow and you will see awesome students working with awesome teachers majority of the time. But you will also, if you stay long enough, find issues popping up that need to be dealt with. And it's that flexibility that the dean offers, that they'd be able to have the training that they can get, provide the support to the principal, everything that you heard from Ms. Loveland and the teachers during our workshop, so they can provide. If we're going to go with a tutor option, then you're really saying, teacher, we're going to provide you with this extra support, like the grade 2 thing we talked about. Teacher, we're going to give you this dedicated tutor. We'll never take them out of your classroom, and they'll be able to support your kids. That probably would help greatly and would give a lot of support. But 18 times that 20,000 is
Well, you want one human
360,000.
to do K through 5
Yeah.
versus hiring 4 human beings to help throughout the entire school.
Yeah.
So if you
Correct.
think about it, it's really a behavior coach, just like we have literacy coaches and math coaches. If we want to call it a behavior coach, we can call it a behavior coach. Somebody who has expertise in training to then train, we call it a train the trainer model. So they would go out and train the teachers in the best practices, but then also service tier 2 and tier 3 just the way our literacy and math coaches do. So it's one person with expertise and who can go out and improve that. When you think about numbers, Fisher Elementary School is within 20 students of Eli Terry, which is within 30 to 40 students of Terryville High School. So it's the mass quantity of students as well, which is why we're looking for the dean. If we want to call it a behavior coach, we can call it a behavior coach, but with that, the job responsibility, in all honesty, there's limitations in the contract by position. So if it's a behavior coach, then they can't do more than 1 duty a day. If it's a dean, part of the job description is that that person is also in the lunch and recess rooms monitoring that as well. So a behavior coach wouldn't serve multiple roles the way that a dean would. So I don't mean to come off like harsh on it, but we've sat around and talked about what the best option is for a really long time. And I know the board has been great about asking Dr. Semmel today, like, what do the experts think we really need? And we're telling you we really need a dean.
I think that personally, a lot of it is the word dean is like everybody has a perception. I'm glad you actually clarified it because that's something else you said too today. It could be called something else, but then we can't do this. I also want to just kind of say this to our board. Remember, we're not here to micromanage those buildings. We're there to give them the support that they need and allow our admin team to do their jobs the best of their ability. Just wanted to say that. We're not here to micromanage them.
Well, I think where I'm coming from is that we're responsible for the budget, and if $80,000 is being spent on one person, can $80,000 be spent on 4 people? and we try to put a tutor in to help once, and then we're back again. So are we gonna put a dean in and then come back again and say, test scores aren't going up, now we need this? So it's,
I think you have to think about what Karen just said. It's gonna be a layered process. We have to get some of the behaviors under control. We have to get that SEL stuff in order for the academics to come. It's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be a process. It really is. It's gonna be a process, and it's something that we've never done. But if you know, our admin team is saying this is what they need, I think we need to consider that they are the experts. Jerry?
Okay, as you just said, this is what we need. So this is my dilemma, okay? We go in with this budget, we get a 0.5% increase, okay, which is normal. Paul, you said what, our average is what, 1%?
For the last 8 years, it's been 0%.
Okay, so let's use that as the template, 0%. So we go in at, what are we at, 24.1 million?
24.6.
No, this year.
Oh.
We get Zippo. Okay, we're at what, 24.1? 24.2?
We're
24,073, 037,791.
So 24.1, rounded off.
Okay.
Now we have to make huge decision on what goes and what stays.
Right. Correct.
I'm not playing devil's advocate, okay? All I'm saying is that now we have to decide what goes and what stays.
But the title money is gonna be there.
I understand that, okay? But are you gonna listen to people next August when they find out that the class sizes at Plymouth Center and or Fisher Elementary are now 25 people? 25 kids in the classroom? You know, we can't give we have to take the first and second grade at Fisher Elementary and now combine it into either instead of 3, now we combine it into 2. All right, then we're going to have the same scenario as we have right now.
Well, Jerry, in a way, you're right. If they keep giving us a zero budget, we will have to make those
I
decisions.
know, Karen, but I
That
don't.
$80,000 won't ever help us.
Yeah,
in
but the
that
thing is,
situation.
Karen, I don't want to be there.
I
I don't want to be there. I don't want to have to look at people in the eye and just say, look, I feel your pain. Unfortunately, what do you want me to do? Instead of having 52 cards in the deck, I only got 51. All right, so what do I do? I mean, as I said in the last time, where's the compromise that we as a board and or the finance board and or the town council and the mayor, where's the compromise in this town? Where is it that we need to have a certain amount of money in order to make sure the kids have a good educational experience in this town? Okay? Where is it? A 0 is nothing. If the mayor has already decided right now that he has informed everyone, okay, that your budget is to be no more than 1%, okay, and we come in at 2.4, what do you think we're getting? More than likely 1%.
Well, I would hope he would listen to people who speak about it.
Yeah, okay, if I live in a perfect world, I would love it too, Karen.
Yeah.
How many times have we gone there in the board, gone to the Board of Finance and asked that basically this is what it is, and the Board of Finance goes, sorry, this is what you're getting, you figure out how to spend the money.
And we will have to
We
do
will.
that.
Exactly.
Right. And then we're back at square one again. All right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to not get to square one. I'm trying to get to the point where we understand where we're at. My question to Mrs. Parsons, I wrote this down. And I know you mentioned it beforehand, but sometimes I need to be reminded. The criteria to be classified as a Title I school system. It goes with free and reduced lunch?
Correct.
Okay. So what is the bar that the feds put on that? Like, is there a percentage that school has to be at in order to be classified as Title I?
There's a regulation book about this thick that goes through
I
how
get
you
it.
assign
How about let's
Title
cut
I.
to the let's cut to the chase.
Bare minimum 35%, and at any given grade level, you have to prioritize. So if we have two elementary schools that both serve K-5, only one of them, unless they're both over 35%, can be Title I.
Okay, so I'll just use the perfect scenario. We have 3 schools in this district that are above the 35 percentile.
Yeah.
Okay, because the state will tell you we are an economically depressed town. I hate that terminology. That totally negates what this town is all about. Okay, but they say we're economically depressed. So let's say, for instance, we had 3 school systems. The Fed only sends us $171,000. How does that money get dispersed amongst the 3 school systems?
Amongst the 3 different schools?
Yes.
It would depend on the enrollment of the student population.
Okay, so if there was, I'll just use, so Fisher could get 50% of the money, Plymouth Center could get, let's say, 25, and then you're looking at Eli, Terry, and or the high school could get the other 25%. It would depend on the administration to decide how that money gets diverse.
No? It's not at our discretion.
No,
There's formulas.
that's the clarification that I want to know. Okay, so that when I'm making an informed decision, I understand what that Fed money is all about.
So I have to run all of the formulas and see where the allocations fall. The trend over the past 3 years is that the only school qualifying is Fisher, and that gap is growing wider. So I don't foresee that changing in the near future. That's the only school that qualifies.
And then if that money, for some reason, just goes away.
We steadily get about 2% more per year in that grant. It's all based on census data. So.
Well, that's not boding well for the state of Connecticut. that's not the.
I expect that over. I mean, if I had a crystal ball, Jerry, I would increase that I would assume that our funding would increase once our census data catches up, because on a whole, the town's economic, need has increased.
Oh no, I get it. That's why I hate that terminology where they always tell us that we're economically depressed in this town.
So
I think that's.
Without
it's a stigma
having actual numbers and the funding in front of me, I can't tell you exactly how everything would fall out. But I can tell you that, the only school that has been qualifying and most likely will continue to qualify is Fisher at this point.
All right. Just to conclude, I just don't want to come back here in May or June where we decide what we're going to get, and then all of a sudden we have to play slash and burn.
Well, we don't decide what we get. That's just.
No, what I'm saying is that whatever they give us, then we have to
choice.
play slash and burn.
And
there's going to be, and when we play slash and burn, it's going to be, sorry.
We get
I don't know what to. I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Go ahead, Dick. You've been patient.
We're dealing with hypotheticals here. Anything that Jerry is saying, it's true, but our job, and I said this last time, our job is to present to the town council and the Board of Finance our budget. That's our job. And we should go for what we think is right. And I think we did the right thing tonight. And as Dr. Semble said earlier, the people have to show up at town meetings. And we could see this here tonight with the number of people that were here just for these 2 issues tonight. I can tell you 40 years ago in the town of Watertown, they had a Board of Education had hired a superintendent because they wanted to get rid of certain people. And the townspeople were up in arms over it. And they had at least one meeting, and I think some more, they had 1,000 people at a Board of Education meeting 40 years ago. And they got things done. So it's our job to present what we think is right. And let the chips fall where they may. And I think with the help of the parents, et cetera, we could probably get this through.
Anything else? I'm going to call call for the vote, and we're gonna do a roll call. So, can we, redo the motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget for 2019-2020 in the amount of $24,616,665.
Second. Roll call vote, Josiah,
No.
Melissa,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Michelle,
No.
Karen,
Yes.
Greg,
No.
Jerry,
No,
Dick.
Yes.
Wow. Okay,
Is that 4-4?
that's 4-4. This is the one you guys are gonna make me vote on, huh?
This is the one.
I'm voting yes. I want this to go forward. So the ayes have it. The motion passes. You got everything? Okay. Are you guys ready to move on to committees?
Sure.
All right.
All right.
The Finance Operations Subcommittee met prior to the meeting, and the subcommittee reviewed the accounts by facility report for the month of January 2019, and this report will be forwarded to the Town of Plymouth Board of Finance. Mr. Hendrickson briefed us on some proposals he received for the facility study. He has gotten in 3 proposals and will be briefing us on that more in depth when he has had a chance to look at them more closely.
Any questions? All right, moving on, student achievement.
The Student Achievement Committee met today prior to the 6 o'clock Board of Ed meeting, and the following was discussed. Calendar approval for 2019-2020, assessment data review, which was very good, by the way, curriculum budget, curriculum review cycle, and new courses for 2019-2020.
Any questions, comments? Okay, moving on to our next public comment before the end of the meeting. Does anybody want to make a comment?
So, I'm tripping. Daniel Dow, 269 Malta Road. Interesting when you mentioned about recess, Josiah. So I Googled it. In statute 10-2210, lunch period recess boards to adopt policies addressing limitations of physical exercise. So the state of Connecticut gives you a little leeway, but it is up to the Board of Ed to adopt the policy. It's not technically against the law, but you guys could say if it's a disciplinary action, if you set a policy, and you could take a recess away. But it's, read the statute.
No, not true. We'll pass that one.
Hi, Kelly Akatura. I just wanted to make sure that the parents that we understand, so the voting that just happened is for the dollar amount, and that does include having a teacher in place and also keep maintaining the music, the position. And does that also include with the dean? Because we're just, so it's all of those things?
Yes, it's all of
Yeah.
those things.
Okay. And when board members vote no or yes, when they vote no, does that necessarily mean they're not agreeing to one of those items? I mean, I'm just so we can kind of get a better understanding of.
It's really up to them personally.
Okay.
Philosophically, some people do it overall. Some people it's one but it's really up to them, so.
Okay. Just so we can kind of get a better understanding of the voting process and things. I can speak for myself, and I know that the parents that have been with me time and time again and are with me also this evening, that we will go to the Board of Finance. We will go to the Town Council. We'll do whatever we can. As parents very concerned for our kids, we will do it, follow it till the end. You will have our support for sure, and we appreciate you voting yes. We appreciate
you really taking in consideration all the things that we have discussed. We're very grateful, and also we are grateful for the help for this current year as well. Just want to make sure, please don't let the tutor be taken, the tutor to be taken away to sub. The current tutor that's in place for the first and second grade currently now, she did sub for my daughter's pre-K class all of last week, because unfortunately Mrs. Trudeau was sick and she was out with the flu for the whole entire week. So I did get the opportunity to meet her and chit-chat with her, and she is a lovely woman, but I just wanted to let you know, I know personally that she was there for the whole entire week subbing for my daughter's class. So we're just asking, although we're so grateful for the fact that we do have the tutor for our children to help us for this year, if it can just really, if there's any way possible to keep that person, at a minimum for being removed from the class, because then we'll just end up right back where we started if they do get removed frequently. But thank you so much for all of your time. Us parents really do appreciate you listening and taking our concerns into consideration. Thank you.
I'm just going to mention to the parents, though, that March 21st is the presentation to the Board of Finance. So that's when the $24,616,000 it just was voted on. I'll present that. That's just an opportunity for them for the first time. Well, although Mr. Kilduff has been here all this time, and actually Mr. Huff is here as well, for them to hear the presentation. But then on April 22nd, I think Mr. Kilduff told me, that's when the town council should take up their overall budget. Last year they didn't have a quorum for that meeting, so they actually, I believe, and Danny, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had to hold off and have a meeting later on. But you had to have a special meeting. But April 22nd is currently what's called the tri-board meeting, where the Board of Finance recommends a number to the town council, and Mr. Gentile is on the town council, so if you want to get an early start, you can start having a few conversations with Mr. Gentile. Sorry, Danny. Or Mr. Huff.
So that, just to clarify for the parents, that meeting is the week after April break. It's not, because sometimes it's usually that week, so it's the week after.
Oh, and I do want to thank Mr. Kilduff, because when I brought that to his attention that originally was going to be during vacation again, he worked hard to try to get that date moved, so parents with families who might go on vacation during that time, they won't miss the opportunity to have a voice.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go on to board liaisons. I know a couple of them had snow dates, so that is Harry S. Fisher was last night, snowed out. Josiah, you missed?
The last two were canceled.
They were canceled,
Both of them, yeah. One of them I showed up at.
Cindy, do you want to start with Eli first?
So ours was snowed out too, but I know it was on anyway. The kids have absolutely adored the mascot at all the basketball games. Everyone from 4 foot tall little kids to I think they're taller than me, some of them, have been getting in there and having a blast with it. The t-shirts that we've been giving out at the games, I go into the school and the kids are wearing them and I'm like, yay. So that's been really great. We're getting ready. Our skate night was supposed to be yesterday. It's rescheduled to next week, Tuesday the 19th. So far we have 80 students signed up for that, and normally another, almost 100 show up at the door. So that's going to be a really great night. We have our quarter auction that we're getting ready for, and we'll have more details for that coming out. Booster Club. All of the winter sports are starting to round up. Again, for Booster Club, we did the shirts that we do at the middle school. A lot of kids have been wearing those. On Friday, they did the pep rally. And they gave away 25 shirts at the pep rally. The cheerleaders had a fun time with that. I believe the kangaroo was a big part of that, too. We're calling it a McRoo night. That's the 21st of this month from 5 to 8. Anyone that comes to McDonald's that night, a portion of the proceeds go back to the Booster Club. So we are looking for staff. superintendents, teachers that would like to serve fries and sodas that night at
Wait, what night is it
McDonald's.
again?
Thursday the 21st. There's nothing else going on. We double checked everything.
She checked her schedule apparently.
Thursday, March 21st?
No, February.
February 20th.
Yeah. From
That's-
6 to, from
it's next
from
week.
5 to 8. Yep.
McRoot, I love
I get to serve fries? Are you kidding me? Do I get to eat fries while I'm there?
Probably not while
You
you're
can buy
serving
them, so a portion of the proceeds go back to the Booster Club.
He's used to that.
That's right.
So if anyone wants to come out that night and help, McDonald's recommends at least 12 volunteers for the shift, giving 1 hour at a time. That's pretty much all that's going on for those two clubs.
I would fail.
Any questions? Just to see him with that.
The hat?
Yeah, get the hat. Karen, would you like to do high school?
Sure. I was not able to make the meeting, but I do know that our student reps kind of gave a good update on how the Krabby Owls night was very successful. They do have the Wizards game coming up and, hoping to have a lot of support for that. I would just encourage everyone to try to find a way to, buy a little something or attend a meeting or whatever for the after grad, for our seniors to have a safe time together to enjoy each other's company one last time after graduation. And whatever you can do to support that would be very much appreciated.
I forgot something on mine. We did the IGA roundup, and that was the first time I've ever done it, and we raised almost $1,000 in a week. So that was a really great fundraiser. So thank you to everyone out there.
It seemed like very easy. Like
it is. It's easy.
Yeah, you just fill out some paperwork and then they give you a check. So thank you to everyone that rounded up for the Booster Club. It was almost $1,000.
That's good fun.
I don't think we have anything for SEPTA.
I don't.
Yeah, because we had to cancel it because we
I
didn't
think
have
it
enough.
was canceled for weather or something.
Yeah.
We do have
Coming
an
up.
upcoming event on February 25th. Parents, take note of this. We are hosting a community conversation. This will be, I believe, the 3rd year we've hosted this. This is an opportunity for members of the community to come in and speak about experiences specifically with child-serving systems in Connecticut. However, our community conversations have gone about our entire town and all of the resources and the needs of our town. Anybody from the community is welcome to join us. There will be 3 questions. What's working? What's not working? And what are your recommendations? This goes into a report that ultimately goes to the state and helps the state legislators and the powers that be make decisions for our communities. I highly recommend anybody who's interested to give me a call and come on down to Fisher at 7 p.m. on February 25th.
All right. Jerry, do you have anything else for Cave?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
There's a bunch of stuff going
Okay.
on. There really is. Anybody who needs to find out what's going on with with legislation needs to go to Day on the Hill. Seriously, any of you board members can go, because this is a slew of stuff going on. I did mention the 2 things about regionalization. Okay, that looks like they're going to have conversation about that. There's also conversation going on at the state level concerning specific graduation date for high school seniors because of the issues that go on with snow days, where all of a sudden, we'll use after grad as an example. After we're supposed to graduate, let's say June 9th, we have 4 snow days. Now it's June 13th, but after grad, reserve June 9th. You have to hope all the other school systems that came after that had 4 school days, because otherwise...
It's a game that they play. Whoever's in charge of it, as soon as Dr. Semmel calls, they start making phone calls to the venue saying, and they want to be the first one to leave a voicemail saying, our new date is, and it's a game.
Right.
So it's crazy.
And it's not only Terrible High School, there are other issues too. One of the things that was brought up is some school systems book the bush now. So, I mean, so those are things that are at the state legislature right now. So please keep informed.
And I believe the premise of that is that you could keep graduation the same and seniors would not have to fulfill the 180-day obligation.
Correct, and
Yeah.
basically what it is too is some of the caveats with it is what happens with exams. And some of them are stipulating that, well, they're seniors anyways, they should be graduating, so there's probably no necessity for them to take exams.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm just saying, those are, those are some of the conversations that are coming up.
Could do it earlier.
Yeah, but
So-
you know, by April, you know, and you can just move them up if you have to.
Right, so you can turn around, but those are three of the big issues right now that's going on in the state capitol. Okay, and I'm sure once the budget gets presented by Lamont, then you'll be able to know what's going on. But I would definitely say, if you have a chance to go to Day on the Hill, I would go, because you might be able to get a lot of information out of that. This might be the year where you'll definitely get more. And then one caveat that I want to know, and we all went to the CABE convention with Mr. Lincoln. Have you noticed Mr. Lincoln as the $5 guy for Pizza Hut
Yeah, I
on
saw that.
commercials?
Nuh-uh.
The same guy?
Yes!
way!
Yes, it is. It's
Wow.
the
Oh, my
same
Lord.
guy.
Oh my God, that's not.
I guess he found his calling.
Oh my God.
My world is
And that
complete.
I will leave you on a
Okay.
high note.
All right, I actually have a report, guys. So I went to Edmonds last week. No, Monday.
How was dinner?
Okay, so I'm just gonna say this
Come
because
on,
I
Karen.
don't eat beef. That's what they had, but the other stuff was good. I'm sure everybody would have loved it. I actually just got kind of caught up. There was a lot going on, but I did want to. They did talk about the Main Street School because they are interested in purchasing the Main Street School for use, and they had a roll call vote on their board. And just so you know, not that I don't agree that I want them to have that building, because I think it's a great idea, I abstained from that because it's our town, and I just got on that board, and I didn't want them to think that I was doing that on purpose. So I support that idea, but I want you all to know that I did abstain, because I just didn't feel it was right to vote for that one. But I did get it, we talked a lot about legislation. They have a whole, I actually have it in my car, actually. They, Advance actually puts a whole, for the reg together for what their ledge platform is. So I do have that, and it's on their website too. And we talked about regionalization, we talked about the classroom safety. We didn't talk about the last one that we did. That wasn't the one we talked about, but, let's see, what else? I have to look in my notes.
Yep.
I don't wanna miss too much. Actually, that's kind of it. It was mostly legislation. It was mostly about Plymouth Center. Main Street School. And, I thought this was very interesting. I talked to Barbara about this. Advance actually has a transition 18 to 21 program. Some school districts can't serve like ours, obviously, is working. So they actually put together a program for 18 to 21-year-olds. So other districts within our reg can use it. It's an option. So I thought that was amazing. And by the way, they also have a driving school now at Advance. Yeah, they have driver's ed there. So I thought that was quite interesting. So that's about it. Any questions for anybody else from any committees? All right, final board comments. Anybody else before I give? You're going last.
Why do you assume I'm going to be quicker than him? This is just in reference to one of the public comments who was wondering why people would vote certain ways. I would say if you can't, if people don't make comments before they speak, or you just can't figure out why they voted a certain way, we are elected officials. Please feel free to always confront any elected official and force them to answer a way on why they voted a certain way. We should all be absolutely able to speak on why we voted certain ways. So that's generally, I'd say the same thing. Always ask your politicians why they voted one way.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Anybody else? You guys ready for Jerry, right? All right, go ahead, Jerry.
Mrs. Train's great presentation. That's the first time that I saw since I've been a board member of the transition program. Okay. Kayla,
Amazing.
you know, God, gave me goosebumps. She is awesome.
Yep.
Okay. So, in all honesty, thank you very much, Kayla. I know you're not here, but thank
may
you
be
very
listening.
much.
She's watching.
She's
You know.
probably,
Yeah, she's
She's
probably
watching.
That's all right, but,
She's already sent me an email thanking me for letting her do it.
okay, but she did a really good job. Seriously. Those are kids that you don't technically see in our school system. Okay? And no disrespect to her. Okay? It's just that, like I said, I've never ever seen a presentation since I've been on the board with that type of program. So please continue. Also, I would let the coordinator know that find out where they can get any type of grant, whether it's through Travelers, the Hartford. You can just write a letter, you know, and just say, look, we're trying to regionalize, we need a van. You never know.
Mrs. Carr, you're talking about. Anything else?
I'm good.
Anybody else?
I have just a quick one. I also want to thank Kayla. I've known Kayla for years. She's a member of our dance family, and I've known her for many years, and she is just an amazing person. So I was very proud to see her up there. I got a little teary-eyed as I watched her.
And I'll say something. Kayla's my son's girlfriend, so and she actually did the presentation when he graduated out of that transition program. She did his final graduation, so that she's amazing. And she actually works for another organization that her and I are involved in, and she does all of their social media, so she's amazing. And see how proud we are that we have that program in our district. So I just want to thank everybody. I know we had a very long night. Parents, all the people from our town who came out, all of our supporters, thank you so much for public speaking. To my board, thank you for a very, very interesting evening. But just remember, you know, going forward, we're here for the kids, as Jerry always says. But now we have to go forward and move forward and go to those town meetings and support our budget. So I hope we all get out there and speak. And that's it. Thank you very much. Happy birthday to our superintendent.
Yes, happy birthday.
Thank
It's a wonderful night, right? So I'm going to call it, it's 10:26.
Motion to adjourn.
Melissa, second. Who's my second? Dick? Okay, all in favor?